Tons of people outside too.
Okay. Take a picture. Okay. And I'm sitting for the rest of the hearing. Just fair warning, just FYI, that's fine. My husband thought he needed to go get something to eat before we came here. Sorry. Now everybody's going to join. Everybody's going to
Four spots left. No, this is for 6 human being like me. This is the dream.
The Standing Committee on Economic Development will now come to order. I'm going to go ahead and get started with a couple of rules. We're not going to have signs. We have the same rules of decorum here in this committee as we do on the House floor. Yep, thank you so much. Okay. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Rader.
Here.
Silver. Beck. Here. Harry.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Bidwell. Here. Green. Boone Green. Fryer.
Here.
Lamb. Here. Miller.
Here.
Piper. Here. Walker.
Here.
Rowland.
Here.
With the quorum being present, we will go ahead and begin. So, welcome everyone. We have quite a group, as you can see. So, I'm one of the bill sponsors, and I'm going to start. And so, before I turn it over to my vice chair, I want to lay some of the ground rules today, so that we can keep things going. As you can see, we have quite a few people here, and we certainly, don't want to be here until tomorrow, still hearing testimony. So can I see a show of hands for everyone here that's going to testify against? And then those that are going to testify for. Okay, so I think that not as many as the room looks. So, okay. What we're going to do is there are 5 bills that we are hearing today. And so we're going to hear them one right after the other, starting with mine. So the 5 bill sponsors will be down in the front. The bills are very similar in nature. And so we will go ahead and do that to keep things rolling. We will at that time open it up for questions from the committee members. And then that will be timed. Everyone will have 3 minutes, and just to keep things moving. And then when we open it up for public testimony, everyone will have 3 minutes for their testimony. We're going to go back and forth for and against. We do, just to keep things fair and to keep things moving, we do have a list of some that have traveled very far on both sides of this issue, and so they will be called up first. Thank you so much. I will now turn it over to my Vice Chair, Rob Pacific.
All right, we'll now start the hearing on House Bill 91. As soon as Representative Rader is ready, please proceed.
You guys are younger, you can do that. We're gonna take one more.
House Bill 91. Right to work laws are being passed throughout the United States and state legislatures. Just this past Saturday, the Kentucky Senate passed theirs as well. House Bill 91 simply eliminates the mandatory unionization of workers. This simple change has proven in state after state to bring in more jobs and spur a state's economy. In Missouri, we currently rank at the bottom for job growth and economic development. Currently, 27 states have now passed right to work. No state that has passed right to work has backed up and said, this isn't working. A little bit of light show going on for my testimony. The movement we have seen has only been other states adopting the same policy. Right to work laws are not union busting, as many union bosses like to say. The policy simply states that you do not have to join the union to retain your job. Think about that for a moment. You still get to be part of the union. Unions still exist. In all of these 27 states that have had this law, unions still exist. The change is simple. The union will now have to provide a service worth paying for their members to want it. They are no longer guaranteed members regardless of service or value, so they will have to work for them, just as the union member works for their paycheck. I also want to address one of the main arguments that we're going to hear from those opposed to right to work today. They call it free rider. On our side, we call it captive passenger. The Supreme Court has repeatedly ruled that the National Labor Relations Act allows unions to negotiate contracts covering only members that pay dues. Justice Brennan wrote in Retail Clerks versus Dry Line Goods, members-only contracts have been long recognized. It's only when unions are acting as exclusive bargaining representatives that they represent non-members, but that is solely by their choice. If you don't want a free rider, I suggest you take it out of your contracts. But again, that is the union's choice. I have a few statistics that I'd like to share regarding right to work and wages. Private sector pay in Midwestern states with right to work laws saw a 19% increase, while Missouri only saw a 6% increase from 05 to 15. Right to work and jobs. The National Institute for Labor Relations research found from '05 to '15 that Midwestern right-to-work states increased in private employment jobs by 11.7%, while the national average sat at 5.5, and Missouri was a tad lower at 4.8. Right to work in the economy. Right to work states have less people on welfare, TANF. From 2005 to 2015, right to work states averaged 5.1 per thousand persons who were recipients of welfare. Missouri's average was 9.7 per 1,000. That's because there are more jobs. After right to work became effective in Indiana, unemployment rates have dropped from 8.2% to 4.4%. After Indiana passed their right to work legislation, they set a record pace for business expansions totaling $1 billion to include a Toyota expansion in Princeton of $130 million, Amazon warehouse in Jeffersonville, $80 million, Cummins expanded in Seymour, $220 million, and Roche Diagnostics expanded at $300 million. Right to work and union membership. According to the Union Membership and Earnings Database, from '05 to '15, union memberships in right to work states rose by 7.6%. It fell by 5.4% in forced unionism states as a group. During that same period, Missouri's decline was 20%. In conclusion, workers who believe that their union is the best avenue to bargain for the best benefits and wages will have no objection to paying dues to that union. But right to work protects the workers who don't believe their union is truly working for them or that lobbies for a political agenda they do not wish to support. The union chooses to advocate on behalf of the entire union. They have that choice, per the Supreme Court, to not include this in their contracts. Unions have been predicting economic catastrophes for years in every state that passes right to work. They continue to say the sky is falling, yet it never falls. Missouri's almost last now in economic growth. Union membership continues to decline. If we do not change these antiquated labor policies, we are going to continue with the same results. I'd like to see Missouri prosper in job growth. That would help every single individual in this room and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rader. And with that, we're going to move on to House Bill 42. Representative Bill White, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Representative Bill White. I represent the 161st District, Joplin, Missouri, primarily. Presenting House Bill number 42. The way we've got it kind of broken up, I'm going to focus on some statistics and some numbers, and then a little bit of discussion on us versus Connecticut, which will still be a non-right to work state because they just switched today and the numbers go from last year. But we have 6 states that are right to work, and we have 2 that are not right to work. It was Kentucky, and then Illinois, and then of course Missouri. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to actually talk about some of the points Holly raised relating to our neighborhood, the people that we are next. Comparing us to Florida, New York, or California is not necessarily a great comparison. So I would like to start out. Okay, one of the first things you hear is that real wages are terrible in right-to-work states. They're way lower than not right-to-work states. Well, that is not true. There's very little difference in our right-to-work states and our not right-to-work states, with, of course, certain exceptions. But let's look at what we have in our neighborhood. Just coming down to the numbers here, 5 or 6 right-to-work states have higher earnings. This is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and also the Bureau of Economic Activity. These are federal. I would assume you're going to agree they're pretty non-biased. These are U.S. government data. Missouri checks in at $768.57 average weekly earnings. Is a right-to-work state that we border that is less is Arkansas. Kentucky, which, as I say, was a non-right-to-work state until today, was significantly lower than Missouri at $750. The only state that is higher than Illinois was higher, and then they have a little different cost of living we'll talk about later. Okay, looking at numbers a little different way. per capita income. Again, this is not adjusted for cost of living, things like that. This is just straight per capita. It turns out that our 6 surrounding right-to-work states, 4 of them are higher than Missouri, 2 are lower. Of the 2 non-right-to-work states, which was Kentucky and now it's Illinois, Kentucky was lower and actually pretty significantly lower, and then Illinois was higher. So you've got 4 right-to-work states higher and 2 less. Our 2 union non-right-to-work states were 50-50 split. Capita. Okay, median household income, again, a little different way to look at numbers. These are going through all the different statistics. In grad school, they basically taught me statistics are how you get the numbers to say what you want. So we're going through all the different kinds of income looking at. Median household income. Again, there are 3 right-to-work states that we border that are higher than us. There are 3 that are lower. And of the 2 non-right-to-work states, Kentucky was lower and Illinois was higher. So again, pretty much 50 split there when you look at median income. Okay, when we look at cost of living or actual purchasing power of take-home pay, the numbers change dramatically. In part due to where our right-to-work states are, they have significantly lower costs of living. 11 of the 14 bottom states for cost of living, this is out of the National Institute for Labor Relations Research, are non-right-to-work states. Of the 6 highest, they are all right-to-work states. I'll get to our local numbers in just a second. By the way, of the 6 highest in this report, that was Kansas and Nebraska. This came out in 2015. On our local data, we can look at comparing 05 to 15, which are the numbers, the spread I used. I could have picked 04 and 14. The numbers would have looked even better from my side, but we're doing 05 to 15 because it's just a nice, simple fairness. We didn't cherry pick to get the best of numbers here. Disposable income, the only right-to-work state that is lower than Missouri is Arkansas. And it's lower by about a little over $2,000, whereas we have Kansas, Nebraska being over $2,000 higher. By the way, again, our 2 non-right-to-work states, Kentucky was significantly lower than Missouri, and then Illinois higher because of, and actually Illinois barely higher than Nebraska. So again, we're looking at our neighbors. We're not talking global. We're not talking cherry picking which states. These are our neighbors. These are the people that are on our borders. I'm from Joplin, Missouri. I fight with Oklahoma, Kansas, and Arkansas for business to come to my town. Okay, I want to read this. This is one of the emails I got. I've gotten emails, and I've heard from some of the people probably behind me expressing their concerns and how they interpret right to work and how they worry about their jobs. I have deleted names, the union number, and the exact place they work and when. I'm writing in reference to suggest a suggested right to work law, which is mine. This year, I started work, and he was forced because of where he was working to join a local union. I am earning a minimum wage. They charge me $120 to join the union. I'm supposed to get 50 of it back eventually. They take $6.38 out of each paycheck. I can work anywhere in Missouri and make minimum wage without having to join a union. In your bill, could you make it possible for people who are already in the union to be able to notify the union they no longer want to be in the union? Thank you. That was one of the emails I got on this bill. My bill, being a little bit different than Holly's, is that mine has a clause in it that, as currently written, would take effect for existing contracts when it comes up for any renewal, extension, anything like that. So that's why that was addressed to me in that particular manner. I think that's a very insightful. We are not in dealing with this scenario of right to work. We're not always dealing with the person that makes $85 an hour, including benefits. We're dealing with someone who's making minimum wage. Our unions cover, or pay spectrums, depending on what the job or where they work, cover a wide variety of pay incomes. Holly had mentioned union security agreements are not required. The union has to ask for those. She's already mentioned the U.S. Supreme Court cases on that. Unions do not have to represent non-members. We've also had things in front of the Labor Relations Board where unions have decided they wanted to subdivide new unions that use the exact same arguments. Your attorneys behind me know what we're talking about. They know the cases I have in my office. So this is not, making things up. Unions do not have to represent, if they do not choose to, people that are not members. Which takes care of the free ride situation. Okay, want to talk about our union membership. Missouri has been declining in union membership for a long time. Wanted to point out that right now, as of 2015, we have approximately 230,000 union members. It was a little bit up from the year before. Those unions represent 257,000 people. So there are 27,000 people that are not paying union dues that I would assume therefore do not want to join the union that are having to pay the fees that are being represented. That is 11% of the people that are involved. That is, I would think that of those 11%, there's going to be a large number that would prefer, seeing they haven't joined the union, prefer not to have to pay their fees for the representation. Okay, total number of jobs. Holly pointed out a little bit in general, some of our Midwest, some of the things. The non-right to work states that we border, which are Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Tennessee, again, Kentucky, I'm still got in the other category, produced between 2005 and 2015 a net plus of 117,000 jobs. That takes some of the states lost, some gained. That is the total number of jobs for our 6 surrounding right to work states. For our pardon me, I read that wrong. That is a negative. Our non-right to work states lost 117,000. That is Missouri included, that's Illinois, that's Kentucky. Our right to work states, the 6 of them, produced a positive 38,000 new jobs in that 10-year period. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So our non-right to work states have lost 117,000. Whereas our right to work states have actually increased. Poverty level. You know, I've heard lots of things. We're going to put my bill will put everybody into poverty. Well, the way it stands right now, there are 3 right to work states that we border that have a lower unemployment rate, or pardon me, lower poverty rate than we do. There are 3 that have a higher. Likewise, for Kentucky and Illinois, Kentucky has a higher, Illinois has a little bit lower than Missouri. So again, it is not going to make it or break it either way. It is not that if you're in a right to work state, you're in poverty. The numbers don't show that. For our surrounding states. Unemployment. Likewise, for our surrounding 6 right to work states, 4 of them have lower unemployment than we do, 2 have higher. For our 2 sister states that we're not right to work, we have Kentucky is lower, or pardon me, is higher, and Illinois is higher. So none of our 2 sister states are lower, whereas 4 of our right to work states are lower in unemployment. Okay. Actual total employment numbers, not talking union membership, but actual employment numbers. Our right to work states in the 8 states, including the plus Missouri, we're talking about 302,500 new jobs in that 10-year period. Our non-right to work states have a minus 11,800. That is in the 10-year period 2005 to 2015. Missouri itself, between 2005 and 2015, lost 43,100 jobs, so 1.4% decrease. Another interesting thing I ran across, but I hadn't thought about it before, is the phrase is people at their earnings peak years. These are people that are 35 to 55. The non-right to work states, and this is not just our local states, had a $2 million loss in that population, whereas our right to work states across, which at this time of the article were 22, had a $1.7 million increase. Our people of advanced that are entering the market that are being successful are going to where jobs are. They're moving away from their non-right to work states into right to work states. Have the 11, I'd be happy to share 10 of the 11 states that are the worst are non-right to work states. Ranking of states, Holly had mentioned, even distribution are right to work states. 3 states, our sister states bordering us, have a higher economic growth potential, and 3 of them are lower. Both Kentucky and Illinois are lower. Okay. A fiscal note on this thing, just to mention, is could exceed $100,000 for the fiscal portion of it. That's if the Attorney General has to become involved in lawsuits. That's the only cost there will be on this.
Thank you, Representative Lant. Now we're going to move on to House Bill 265. Representative Bratton, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Representative Rick Bratton, 55th District of Cass County, bringing forth House Bill 265. As you heard, these bills virtually mirror each other. You've heard statistics and you've heard, why we should move to this. But my reasoning for bringing forth this House bill is, I believe, my fundamental role as a representative in standing up for the constitutional rights of the people in which I represent. We have a First Amendment and the right to associate with whomever we so choose. But yet we have organizations putting into contracts, forcing people against their will to pay into a organization that does not stand for their beliefs. And I believe that is absolutely against everything that embodies what America is, what freedom is in our nation. And we see the trend going towards the right to work because people see it as the right to choose my livelihood, my right to choose the ability to freely chase whatever I so choose. And it has, to me, the numbers really aren't near as relevant as the freedom. The stronghold of a union, they see it as a much bigger thing. And I see that as my duty, and it is our duty as a government to ensure that the field is leveled and the playing field is leveled for each and every member of the state to choose wherever they want to. And, I found it interesting when I was researching for this hearing, I came upon a Gallup poll that actually did polling amongst union member only polling and asked them if they were in favor of strictly voluntary dues for their members. 8% were in favor of voluntary due paying members. So I find it astounding that we have a room full of people that are going to come here and say that it's going to kill our unions, when the very members have been polled and have said the exact opposite. I mean, nothing in this bill does away with unions. They will still exist at the end of the day, and the stats, just as you heard, show that the numbers actually increase of membership once they become a right-to-work state, as opposed to staying in a non-right-to-work state. The proof is positive. I mean, the stats don't lie. We can shake our heads, but the facts don't lie of that. And I just think that this is a move. It was on the ballot. We saw the amount of money dumped in by all involved parties of right to work versus non-right to work of who was on the ballot. And I think that's is what America or what Missouri wanted, and I think that's the move that we need to make. And I believe that that's why we're here. And my hat goes off to the chairman for moving this bill forward as quickly as we are. So that I will allow the other members to present their bills.
Thank you, Representative Bratton. With that, we'll move on to Representative Lant and House Bill 131.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 131 may be a little bit different. I want to talk to you for a minute about 1978. I was around then, and I had the opportunity to vote on this bill in 1978 when it failed. Now, there was a lot of difference in the state of Missouri in 1978 and in today's world. For one thing, most of the small towns and communities had shoe factories. And I don't know whether any of you remember, but when you were small, there may have been a shoe factory in your town. They're gone now. Most of them had small machine shops and operations, factory operations. Those are gone. In our area, there were a multitude of machine shops that were supplying some of the large area business, and those are gone for the most part. We had major machine shops or major industries in our area: Sperry Vickers, Eagle Pitcher Industries, Big Smith. In the city of Neosho, they had an aircraft manufacturing facility. Some of those had been there since prior to World War II and were still operating. They're all gone today. Eventually, those companies that managed to stay in business ended up moving to a right-to-work state. Now, there was a reason for that. After the 78 failure to pass right-to-work in Missouri, people pretty well got used to the idea that there weren't going to be any non-union shops. So what they did in our area, because we're a border area, we're bordered by Arkansas, we're bordered by Kansas, we're bordered by Oklahoma. Those all three happen to be right-to-work states. And the people started moving. We lost not only the companies, but we lost the employees. We lost the people that were on our school boards. We lost the people that were operating the small businesses and shopping at the industries that we all depended on. Those also began to disappear. Eventually, most of that business went to Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. So what we're left with, I don't know that anybody has come forward with the census numbers, but the state of Missouri is not growing. We're losing counts every census. We have lost counts. Everybody in the state of Missouri that wants to stay here is already staying here. The kids that are coming out of college that are looking for good jobs are going to places that they know they can get good jobs. In that time, in 78, 69% of our workforce was union. Today, it's less than 30%. Now that should tell us something. When we realize that the union numbers are dropping every year, in the Joplin area, the Sperry Vickers plant had 1,200 plus employees. The Eagle Pitcher plant had 1,200 plus employees. Now, Eagle Pitcher Industries, in case you don't know, was instrumental in the space program. The Brown Shoe Company had 1,000 plus employees. The King Press Company, which built offset color presses, had over 600 employees. Teledyne had over 1,000 employees, and BF Goodrich had over 1,000 employees. Now, today, all of those companies are gone. All of those jobs are gone. You can add the numbers up that I just mentioned and subtract those from the area population that was there. As an example, when I moved to that area in 1964, they were saying that there were over 50,000 people in the Joplin metropolitan area. Today, you'd be fortunate to find over 40,000 people in that Joplin metropolitan area. It's a shrinking population. In our industry, we're losing our young people. Young people get out of college and they're going to go where they can make some money. Now, I'm not saying that a non-union company is going to always pay more than a union company, but at least there are going to be jobs. There's going to be something for those kids to do.
Let me remind the audience, we're gonna be respectful. Just as I would be respectful of you, let's let the representative talk and then we'll get on to questions. Thank you.
To answer the humor, there might not be jobs that pay $29 an hour, but a job that pays half that beats the thunder out of sitting at home. The point that I'm getting at in our area, we are out of jobs, period. There just is not anything for the young people to do that graduate from college today in the Joplin area. Now, I don't know if your areas are the same way, but the St. Louis area, when I moved from there in 1964, downtown St. Louis, there was a General Motors plant. It was a Fisher Body plant. They are no longer in existence. Neither are the other automotive plants that were located in and around the whole St. Louis area. They've got a few left, but they have nowhere near the employment that they had at that time. That's happening to our state. The states of Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma are growing. Tennessee's growing. Missouri's losing count. We're going to have to do something to help economic development in these rural areas in particular, or we're going to lose out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Lance. Now we will move on to Charlie Davis. Representative Davis, House Bill 314. Representative Davis, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present for your consideration House Bill 314. We've heard Representative Rader give an overview of the bill. We've heard Representative White give the facts, the figures, and the numbers of the bill. We've heard what we feel is the constitutionality of forced membership into any organization you don't agree with. We've heard some passion about some of the jobs that have been lost in my area. I'm going to give you a brief story and then two brief examples. When I was first elected in 2010, I was sitting at my store. I've got 4 employees. I'm sitting at my store and we're talking right to work on the phone. And one of my female employees is just sitting there listening to me and she's shaking her head. And I got off the phone and said, "Why are you shaking your head?" She said, "You mean in Missouri you could be forced to join an organization even though it goes against maybe your principles or your desire?" And I was like, "Absolutely." She said, "That's almost paramount to you telling me that I had to be a member of your church in order to work here, and I'm going to take your tithe out of your paycheck before you even get it." She says, "That isn't right. Neither is it right for anybody else to be forced to join an organization." So that goes to Representative Bratton's example. And let me tell you about 2 other examples, 2 stories from my district. My dad and my stepfather, or my father-in-law, worked at the Teledyne plant that Representative Lance was talking about. And just the other day, I was talking with one of the union members that was instrumental in forming the union down at Teledyne. And we were just talking, and he was kind of proud about that. And I said, "Well, how many people are down there today?" He said, "They're not, they shut down." I said, "We have 1,000 people working in that facility, not less than a half of a generation ago." When I moved that back here when I got out of the Navy in 1989, that was a factory in a facility that was remanufacturing aircraft engine, a vibrant workforce that's not even there anymore. They moved to Texas. And it was a few years ago that I remember President Pro Tem of the Senate, Ron Richard, my senator, was the mayor of Joplin. And we were talking with an auto manufacturer, was looking at a huge piece of property just west or east of Webb City that they wanted to purchase and build a 2,400 employee facility. $42,000 a year starting salary for those workers, full retirement benefits, full health benefits. And the Tokyo individuals that were there on behalf of the company asked now Senator Richard about right to work. He said, "As mayor, I can try to get our legislature excited about it and maybe get it to happen." Didn't happen. Since then, Toyota has built 3 facilities in the United States. But you know what? It's not my district. It's not helping a single one of the 37,000 people that I was elected to represent. And I guarantee you, 2,400 of those people would have loved to have those $42,000 a year jobs. So what do I think we need to do? I honestly believe that right to work is the best thing for the state of Missouri. I think it's the best thing for the state. I believe it's the best thing for the workers. It's the best thing for businesses. And I would hope that we can move this quickly, and I hope that we can bring it to the floor and proceed on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Davis. With that, we're going to move on to questions from the committee. Please limit the time on your questions. We are going to try and limit to 3 minutes apiece, just so we can make sure everyone in the room is heard. So with that, we'll take any questions for any of the bill sponsors again. Representative Dunn, please proceed.
I have a few questions for some of the sponsors of the bills, but before I do that, I did want to sort of make a few comments. And I think I can make these comments, and I think all of us on this committee can agree to these things. That one, we would like to see job creation here in Missouri. We would like to see workers have wages that allow them to take care of their families, and that we would like to prevent the clogging of our court system and ensure open and fair access to all. Unfortunately, I don't think any of these bills that were presented here today will help us accomplish these goals. And with that, I will go into some of the questions that I have. And I think the first couple of questions are just general questions, and so whichever one of you want to answer those questions, I'd be happy with that. Is it not a fact that no one at this point in time can be forced to join a union as a condition of employment under federal law?
Depending on if you have a union security agreement, you may not be forced to join the union, but you have to pay the fees if you are represented. Yes,
But
it is paying.
But again, under federal law, you cannot be compelled to join a union as a condition
You
of
will be
employment.
compelled
Is that
to
correct?
pay the fee.
That's not answering my question. My question is, can
That
you
is
be
my
compelled to? You're not answering the question. And again, I think we should be fair to one another. I think I'm being fair in my question. I think it would be fair to actually answer the questions that are asked. The next question I have is it not a fact that the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that workers cannot be forced to pay dues used for political purposes? Is that correct or not?
The political purpose is correct, but in the taking of one's money and giving to another, they can, by a fee or a due or whatnot, can be forced as a term of employment, yes.
But I just want to.
It is a removal of their earned dollar to pay into either a fee or a due to that organization.
But again, when it comes to political purposes, those dues.
But to your first question, because I didn't get a chance to.
Okay.
Yes. And political purposes, they say no.
Next question I do have is specific to Representative Rader. Sort of in reading through the bills, I believe the 4 other bills before us, with the exception of yours, were identical or nearly identical. Other bills in section 7 under sub point 5 states to any collective bargaining agreement or any other type of agreement between an employer and the labor organization entered into before the effective date of this section, but shall apply to any new agreement or renewal or extension of any existing collective bargaining agreement. Now, your bill of the 5 that we have before today did not have that language. Is there a reason why you did not include that language in your bill but the others did?
I can't speak on their behalf, but I can tell you that I don't feel the grandfather clause is needed. And so for current contracts, I think that it should go into effect.
Because for me, I have great concerns about that language not being included in there if one of these bills were to pass. And the reason being that language at least protects those agreements that were in place prior to this legislation going into law. And I think perhaps it might be unconstitutional for us to go back and say agreements that were previously made are no longer valid because this language says now that those agreements are no longer enforceable.
And I appreciate that question. The Supreme Court has ruled on that, and the controlling precedent comes from 1949 case before the Supreme Court, and right to work laws and constitutionally apply pre-existing contract, as the U.S. Supreme Court held in Lincoln Federal Labor Union number 19129 versus Northwestern Iron and Metal. And so there has been a ruling already on pre-existing contracts.
I have some concerns about that language being in the bill. A few other points, and I'll wrap up. We've heard a lot of conversation about the loss of the number of union members in the state and across the country. And I wonder if those numbers are going down so much, then why is this such an important thing for us to be pushing if the number of union jobs are going down?
I think that's a great question. And when we look at this, the number of union membership is going down, but when we see jobs coming into states that have passed right to work, don't we want that same economic benefit as well? So union membership, non-union membership, that doesn't matter. Bringing jobs in is what matters. And when you look at the states that are doing that, it's the states that have passed this policy. And so that's why it's important.
And I would add, I think beyond just bringing in jobs again that provide a living wage for individuals to be able to take care of their families, particularly if they're working a full-time job. Because we know that in many of the right-to-work states, the wages are lower, and we see that many of those individuals that are working full-time jobs, they can still end up falling below the poverty line in many of those states.
Representative Dunn. One more question, then we're going to move on.
Okay, and then I'll just wrap up with saying this. Here in this body, we often talk about freedom. And Missouri currently is a free-to-bargain state, and there's nothing in law that compels an individual to join a labor organization or pay dues as a condition of employment. Furthermore, this right is protected currently under federal law. Study after study shows that right-to-work states tend to be at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to worker compensation, economic growth, and many other variables that are important.
Representative Dunn, is there a question?
I'm wrapping up with this. Okay. Chair. And it is for these reasons, I believe, that right to work is often called right to work for less. I would add that right to work is a right to freeload, receiving benefits and protections that labor unions and their members have.
Representative Dunn, do you have a question for the committee?
Their members.
Representative Dunn, do you have a question for anyone sitting up there that is a bill sponsor? Rather than a statement, do you have a question? I open this up for questions, not for statements. Do you have a question? You've already made several statements. Do you have a question for anyone sitting up there?
Mr. Chair, if you would give me an opportunity to
do you have a question for anyone up there?
At this time.
Okay, let's hear your question. Anyone else have any questions for anyone up there? Representative, go right ahead.
Thank you, Representative. I guess this is first for Representative White. Mr. White, you testified that though there may be no technical requirement to join a union, that you could be compelled to pay union dues, even though you may not need to be a member.
It is not dues, it's a fee. It's a representational fee, which is a proportion of the full dues. And yes, you do have to pay that. If they have gone for a union security agreement and you were employed there, you will pay the fee. You may not want to call it a due, because dues are, if you are a member, you pay dues. If you are not a member, you pay a fee.
Either way, I guess however you choose to paint that, I view that as kind of punitive in nature.
Well, their argument is that, hey, they're getting the benefit, therefore they should pay for it. As my letter stated, if you do not want to be a member of that union, if you, as Representative Bratton had mentioned on the issue, you may not have to pay the political contribution portion, but you are still paying a fee which supports an organization that is supporting, whether your money is direct or not, that is supporting, say, their philosophy obviously supports people that are not pro-life, that are not pro-Second Amendment, that is demonstrated perhaps by how they do spend their own political money, but that organization is spending that money. And if you do not believe in that, even if you are not paying the political due that goes over there, you, by having to pay that fee, is supporting that organization. And when you deal with the amount of what is actually represented there, I did not, due to time, present. There are statistics out there that unions of how much money actually of those fees is actually spent on actually representing, being paid into for the representation of workers. And that number usually includes also the salary of the paid people for the leadership that are involved in that. So it is not a every penny I pay and my fee is spent every penny on directly representing me.
So my understanding is then that these four bills would eradicate that punitive requirement.
What it would do, I'd say punitive, it allows you, if you, and I would mention, in our right to work sister states that are bordering us, union membership has increased. That has not happened in any of our non-right to work states that we border, including Missouri.
If I may follow up on that, one question on enforcement. How did you arrive at enforcement? Going through the prosecuting attorneys and attorney generals, or is it administrative? These are all prosecuting attorney.
Well, the enforcement of
Any failure to follow these new laws?
if you did that, yeah, you would end up, you would be, in violation of state law. You would end up, then it would be attorney general, or a local prosecutor could, within the, we could go to the local prosecutor.
And it would be a class C misdemeanor. Is that correct?
I think so.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, I'd have to read that one off.
And you, in theory, have a jury trial on that. Jury of your peers would then determine, right, as opposed to, all right.
Or you could ask for a judge-based trial.
Okay. Following up now with statistics, you mentioned earlier there are statistics. I'd like to get to some statistics. I heard some statistics before about our surrounding states. 6 of our 8 states around us have adopted right to work, one most recently, Kentucky.
Which makes it 7.
Okay, it makes it 7. So, in those statistics with Kentucky, how Kentucky ranks to us, we really can't say they're right to work because this is statistics come from before they were right
It
to work.
basically uses 2015 and earlier data. That was my base year because there isn't full 2016 data.
Okay, and are there statistics for states that have adopted right to work? I recently heard Michigan is doing quite well, and are there statistics that show what states have accomplished since they've adopted right to work?
Well, I have our sister states. Representative Rader would be more. She focused more on the states. I look primarily with my numbers on our actual bordering states: Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa.
Representative Rader, would you be happy to share those with us?
Yes. After right to work became effective in Indiana, unemployment rates dropped from 8.2 to 4.4. Also in Indiana, they set record pace, bringing in the business expansions that I had mentioned, which included over $1 billion worth of expansion. And then since becoming right to work state in 2012, Michigan has added 58,000 manufacturing jobs. Over the past 2 years, Missouri has lost 1,200. That comes from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So we're seeing good numbers coming out of these states that Missouri certainly wants to see as well.
And
Representative Blocker, last question.
Thank you. I guess my biggest concern is where Missouri stands, and it seems that our economy is falling behind our surrounding states. Our surrounding states have adopted a plan to move forward, and 6 of 8 are now moving forward in a direction that they're growing faster than us, and they're better able to afford their budgets than we are. And I commend you for bringing the bill to the board.
The number for our sister states, we were talking about employment. Again, right to work states, this is 2005 to 2015. This is our sister states that we border. 302,500 new jobs in right to work states. Non-right to work states, including Missouri, which would be still including Kentucky, and then Illinois and Missouri, is a negative 11,800.
Representative Green. Inquiring. Proceed.
Well, good afternoon. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about some of the statements that were made, and I had a chance to read these documents over. And I actually ran on economic development for my area. So I want to see jobs created. That's what I ran on. I want to see benefits. But my question, and what puzzles me, again, is, and you all gave some history on the bordering states, but also heard some history of the past too. But, our 40-hour work week comes from unions. You all do know, right? Our benefit packages that we appreciate and we get today come from unions. Because prior to all of that, especially in our country in 1900 and moving forward, we didn't have those benefits. And I understand where we are now and we're in a technology age. And the only reason I'm asking those questions is because when I was going through my MBA program about 2 years ago, this came up in class over and over again. And the younger people in the class couldn't understand where they even got the 40-hour work week from. They couldn't understand where benefits came from or childcare. They didn't understand any of that. And the only reason I mention that is, and I have to say this, I came out of a union household. So my dad was a pipe fitter. My grandfather was a millwright. I have a sister worked at, and she's still working at General Motors for 38 years. I have a brother that works for 38 years. But I asked them those questions, and here's the thing. I asked my sister, I said, because she was in Oklahoma City, they shut the General Motors plant down. She got transferred to Kansas City. I says, what do you think about this right to work bill? Because seriously, I'm on economic development. She expressed to me that she makes $16 more an hour here in Missouri than what she did in Oklahoma City. And somebody mentioned the wages. There is a wage difference. So I asked my older brother, who's in Texas at General Motors, and she makes more money than him when she transferred here. So there's a huge benefit when we're talking about the wages, benefits, and what we have here, because the surplus of income that comes in. So in my travels, I also run a small business, and we bond projects and we finance projects. I travel all over the country. And I can't talk to individuals in Arkansas and other when I have to read the contracts right before we write a bond. And I'm asking, are you a union or non-union shop? I have to ask that question because they're bidding. And when they're bidding, I want to know who's going to win, and I got to, we got to write that bond. But the question I'm asking too is, we're losing a tremendous amount in manufacturing, and where's that skilled labor going to come from? I have to ask the question, where are we going to get that skilled labor from? And I know the benefits, and we're talking about these packages about, we want to make sure that we clarify who could be in the union, who could not be in the union, what those kind of things, and who's paying dues. But I'm talking about now, unions help provide all that, so I'm going to be quiet.
So let me just start with first in your question about, do we know if the unions have been beneficial? No one is diminishing the positives that unions have made in our society. That's not what this bill is about, and so your premise is incorrect. This is when states have increased union membership because right to work has increased jobs, then that's not taking away unions, that's increasing unions. And so I think that your premise is incorrect on how that is. And then your question is skilled labor. I have to ask you a question back. Are you saying that unless you're in a union, you are not a skilled laborer?
Mr. Chair, I can continue.
Absolutely.
Okay. No, what I'm not saying that is that there is an abundance of, when I look at a contract and I'm looking at it as a non-union or union, I'm looking at the comparative and I'm looking at the cost. And I also have to look at, when I'm, especially in business and I'm running it, the cost difference in the product that's being put together. And I have to admit that unions do a better job in skilled areas. I have to admit that. And it's over a period of time. And the only reason I say that is in the St. Louis area, there's a tremendous amount of projects being built right now. St. Louis and Kansas City, I asked this question of the United CEO or the president of the United Steelworkers last week. So I'm not going to answer the question. I'm going to tell you what he told me. Because again, I'm not a skilled laborer. I can't answer that. And he was telling me again that his workforce is prepared for whatever direction the state of Missouri goes in. And he's going to continue to train his people no matter what. I can't speak for myself because I'm not a skilled laborer in that area, but I'm talking to now union people, asking them those questions. Are they prepared for it? What's going to happen? How will it be affected? Kansas City, St. Louis, rural areas, and the difference between the two. Those are the questions I'm asking. Will it attract more economic development in the rural areas? Will it attract more in Kansas City? Like the piece that you have in here on the contract, one of the union representatives asked me about, and I asked them about the contract, and we were trying to go back and forth on the existing contract. Some of the guys said it wouldn't affect them because they exist off of contracts. That's why when you looked at that, I said, okay, how would it affect them? And you gave me the federal law on that. So I'm really trying to understand this entire process as we go through it when we're asking questions.
I'd like to kind of follow up on that. You bring up the skilled labor need. That's not going to go away. In fact, that's going to increase. And the ability to join the union and receive the fantastic training that they receive from the union and the safety training that they receive will still exist. But it will be imperative of that union member to become that member if they want to be at the peak and the pinnacle of their trade. So the need will still be there. And it shows, the data shows in those right to work states that the need for the union still exists because, I mean, just in 2014 data, over 4.4 million union workers still exist in right to work states. That's a 24, when it was only 24 states. 4.4 million still exist. So this thought process that they're going to go away just because of the passage of giving that member the right to choose to belong, I think is erroneous. You see the benefit you get as a member of being a member. So why would you forego that? You wouldn't if they're doing the right thing as a union. But if they're not, and they're not representing you, they're not getting you the proper training, that gives you the ability to say, to pull your dues and for them to get their act together, or they can disband and no longer be a union because they're not being effective in training and doing the things that they should be doing as a union. And that's why I fundamentally believe this will do right. I work in the trades, work alongside union guys all the time. I'm non-union, but they do great work. But I hear all the time that there are grumblings within the union that they would like to see change, but they don't feel that they could. I think they need some sort of mechanism to give them that ability. And I believe that's all this will do. And I believe it's a lot of saber rattling that we receive from both sides. It's not the end of the world, and the data shows it with the states that currently exist as right to work states. So.
Thank you, representatives. We're going to move on to the next questions.
No, I just want to ask, can I see some of your data? That's all I want to ask.
Yeah,
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Representative Barry.
To clarify and inquire, Representative Green, real quickly.
Proceed.
Representative Green, did I hear that your sister works for General Motors in Kansas City? Works at the Fairfax plant? Okay, and the Fairfax plant is in Kansas. Okay, a right to work state. Just want to clarify. So there's different contracts depending on the state or depending on what have you, but I just wanted to clarify that because Ford, located in Clay Como, is in Missouri and Kansas City area, and Fairfax GM is located in Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions for any of the bill sponsors? Representative Beck?
Yes, Representative Law.
Representative Viscola, thank you. My questions are for Representative Rader. My glasses broke, so figured something would happen. This is my 4th day in session too, so. Couple questions. One, you're the chairman for economic development, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to ask you the question, economic development, and what's the number of the top two factors for corporate site selectors and looking for a site?
I know that right to work is in the top 5. I couldn't rank them.
The first two?
No, sir.
Highways. Highways is number 1.
Okay.
The other one is availability to educate a workforce. That's number 2. Some other questions. You know, I've heard, I'm a union member. I've been a union member for 30 years, and I'm a proud union member. And unions fight for everybody, whether it's the 40-hour work week, whether it's all those things that we've done over the years and continue to do today. We have, I could go over the statistics, but I have different statistics than you have on all these 6 bordering states, and we can all say Kansas is not doing really well. They have a lot of budget issues, And I say, and it was admitted earlier that one of the things that we want to do is pay workers less. So we already have revenue issues in the state as it is. How's paying workers less going to help?
I didn't say we wanted to
Well,
pay workers less.
Representative
I
Lance
think
did.
that, he didn't say that he wanted to pay workers less.
He said people are going to make less money.
I think that the comment was that a job is better than no job.
He said if you're making less money, he also made that comment that if you're making $26 an hour, you're making 15, as long as you have a job, it's okay. So you're making less money.
You were completely confused.
I'm sure you said that. I'd like to inquire about that. Did you mention that?
I think what I was meaning was it's better to have a job than no job. If you're making $24 an hour working for a company, it's better to be making a $24 an hour than it is the $36 an hour and laid off.
So make less money.
He said, and laid off. That's no money.
That's a matter of debate if we get laid off. So
Well, I don't think
We'll have
that
plenty
is a
of
matter
time
of
for
debate.
debate on the floor. Let's continue with our questions.
the next question is, a part of your bill, it has penalties in it,
Yes.
criminal penalties.
Yes.
So who's going to be penalized?
Anyone that doesn't follow the right to work. Don't you think that, we can't pass laws and not have any form of a hammer to make them implemented? And so you have to have penalties. Many of our bills have penalties.
So this is a criminal penalty on a private negotiation between a labor union and an employer. And who gets penalized?
This is
Who can go to jail? I guess I should ask.
whoever breaks the law.
Another question I have for you, since you are in charge of economic development, in your district, what have you done to increase economic development there?
I'm an employer.
Who do you talk to? As far as the state representative, being a state representative, who do you?
I'm an employer, and I employ almost 50 people, and I have subs of almost 200. And so I think that I do my share of economic development in my district, as well as sacrificing my time and coming up here just as you are while I'm away from my business to serve the people.
Yeah, I don't consider mine a sacrifice. I consider it as a servant doing a duty. But the next question, the last question I have for you,
Representative Beck, let's be respectful as well.
Yeah, let's do.
That's fine how you felt, but let's not talk about what the representative does in her district. But you want to talk about a district, talk about your district. We all know the backhanded comment.
how many jobs I've created.
Sure.
I don't know, it's hard to tell when you're a consumer, and that's where jobs get created from anyway, when you have money to spend.
Yeah.
So the more money you make, the more money you have to spend, the more jobs you create. So those are job creators.
It's a bit backwards.
It's, business owners aren't job
Right.
creators.
Representative
Business
Beck, do you have
owners
any
are
other
not job
questions?
creators.
Representative Beck, do you have any other questions?
People have money.
Representative Beck, do you have any other questions?
Yes, I did have one more
Okay,
question.
let's go. Let's move forward. You're out of time, but I'm going to continue. Let's go.
My next question is, and this relates to that. So, in your last election, you won pretty big, contested election, you won 60% to 39%. Do you think it would be fair if that 39% that didn't vote for you?
Sir, what does this have to do with right to work?
Decided they didn't want to pay part of your salary?
What does this have to do with right to work? Representative Beck, we're talking about the bills at hand.
Yes.
Can you question on the bills at hand?
Yes, that's right. So
Okay, stick to the topic, which are these 5 bills that we're hearing right now.
Correct.
Do you have a question about these bills or their implementation into the state?
Okay.
Last question, last chance.
So my question is so you don't believe that we can have a free bargaining state, so you don't believe that business should be able to be bargained freely. You believe we should put regulations on it, on businesses and employees.
I believe
Right.
they should be able to. They should be able to choose to bargain or not to bargain.
Which they can do now.
They should be able
Nobody
to have
forces-
the outcome.
Nobody forces a company to go into a union agreement. Is that a question, Representative? That's a statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Fitzwater,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question?
proceed.
Thank you. Representative Rader, I have a couple quick questions, and they may sound rhetorical, but one is, have you ever had a job that pays less than not having a job?
Yes, I believe everyone in this.
Because I've never heard of anybody having a job that pays more than not having a job, not being employed. So that's one thought. Second is, we have this new governor, who's exciting for some of us. And he says that if we want to get different, we have to do different. And if we're looking at our state over a period of time, decades, we're looking at our state, Missouri. Would you say that we're knocking it out of the park as the economic development chair, a leader in the state on economic development? Would you say we're knocking it out of the park?
No, I would say the statistics prove otherwise.
Yeah, so would status quo be the best way to go if we're not knocking it out of the park? We're at the bottom. I mean, from all the statistics I've seen, we're at the bottom of economic development in our country. And I don't think we want to be there. So would you say status quo is the best option for moving our state forward? Okay, and then we heard that St. Louis is doing some great projects, which they are. There's a number of things in St. Louis that are really encouraging. They've got some workforce development stuff there that I think is really encouraging. But would you say St. Louis, with their out-migration and population shifts, that would be an important indicator for where we're going as a state and how important it is for a state to move forward? Do you think that is an important consideration? And have you seen any statistics about population shifts in St. Louis in that area?
You know, I have not seen statistics.
Okay, well, recently I saw some numbers from 2010 to 2015, and I would say it's not encouraging. People to move to what should be a beacon for our state, right? St. Louis, it's such a significant portion of our economy. And so, in my opinion, and just a thought, and I'll ask this, is should we stay on the same track we've been doing and getting terrible results, or should we go in a new direction and maybe take some risk and do what's right according to all the information that we have before us?
Right, it's time that we fix some of our antiquated labor laws, and this is one of the main ones that we need to.
Agreed, and I'm happy to support what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the bill sponsors? Seeing none, we're going to move into public testimony, and we're going to excuse the representatives, bill sponsors, and Ms. Chair, come up and resume your position.
As previously stated, we're going to go back and forth, pros and cons, and we're going to start with some that have traveled in our presence that would like to testify. Eric Smith. Hey, look at that. Welcome.
Hi.
I'm going to let him testify so we can get on out.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Members of the committee, for the record, State Treasurer Eric Schmidt here to testify on behalf of these bills. And the reason why I'm here today, and trust me, I don't intend to make it a habit of testifying on legislation as State Treasurer, but I do believe, as the state's chief financial officer, that we need to do everything that we can do to put Missouri on as sound financial footing as possible. And that means more people, more jobs, and more taxpayers. And I'm also here as a former chair of the Senate Economic Development Committee for 6 years. And I have sat in rooms, countless rooms, with site selectors who were referenced earlier. And I can tell you that without exception, being a right to work state is at the very top of the list. Now, we could debate for a very long time whether it's number 1, or it's number 2, or it's number 5, or even number 10. The fact of the matter is, it's on the list. And we are in a very fierce competition with other states for jobs. And I don't believe, as an elected official of this state, that we can be off of any list. I think we need to be competing every single day. And there is no one silver bullet in economic development. But I can also tell you that a lot of our other economic development tools are a response in many ways to some fundamental reforms that we haven't done, some very basic things that are structural in nature. And right to work is one of those. And so the statistics, you'll have a lot of people here today, but what I can tell you, which is undisputable, and everybody has their set of facts that they want to debate from. But the reality is the states that have enacted right to work have higher GDP growth, including states like Michigan, who 20 years ago, or 1978 as referenced earlier, when I was 3 years old, and last time Missourians voted on this, no one would have imagined that Michigan was a right to work state. They are, and they have more manufacturing jobs now, and they have higher personal income growth. That's good for our state. We used to have 13 congressional districts when this debate first began. We now have 8. So in this competition, we have to recognize that we have to utilize every tool in the arsenal. I believe that this is a big year. This debate, look, has been going on for a while. And I do believe that moving forward, it's really important for us as a state to be as attractive as possible to employers. And by the way, for the men and women who are working in these jobs every single day. And I come from those kinds of families. And I can tell you that my friends and neighbors that I grew up in North County were displaced and didn't have jobs when that Fenton plant closed that I represented after the factory closed. We talk a lot about what we did in Clay Como, which kept a lot of jobs in the state. But a lot of those workers in that Fenton plant were displaced from northern Jefferson County and north St. Louis County, where I came from. And I don't think that, again, we can avoid this issue any longer if we want to compete for those good jobs. And I think that having more of those jobs for the men and women, many of you who are our friends who are testifying here today, we need to put ourselves in the best position to compete long term. So thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Representative? Yes.
First of all, thank you for being here, Mr. Treasurer. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your comments. I know you have a very important job as it relates to our state in making sure we continue to move forward in a positive direction, and I have no doubt that every day that you're in your position, that is exactly what you're working to try to do. And I only have one question. Do you believe that passage of right to work in Missouri and any potential revenue that may come in as a result of passage of right to work will outweigh the massive tax cuts that went into that this legislature passed a few years ago?
Well, first of all, as the chief sponsor of the largest 2 tax cuts in the history of the state, I firmly believe that a lower tax burden will lead to greater economic prosperity for more Missourians. In fact, if you ask me what are the 2 biggest things you could do immediately for us to be more competitive, and in those rooms with site selectors, is to be a low tax right to work state. Those are the 2 most important things. And I don't mean that in political rhetoric. I'm just being honest about what I have heard in my 6 years chairing that committee, and then also now in my capacity. We all want the same things. We're all here elected by our constituencies. We are all fighting for the same thing, which is a state that our kids will have opportunities to get good jobs. And I'm just here to tell you that it is my opinion, and as the chief financial officer of the state, I believe we can do better, and I think right to work is a big part of that.
Do we have other questions from you? Yes. Representative?
Yes, thank you for your service. I was curious that you mentioned Michigan, what's going on in Michigan. Do you think that the billions of dollars they put in the auto bailout had anything to do with their coming around economically?
Good. I think, I use Michigan because I use it as an example because it seems so far-fetched that the state of Michigan would be a right-to-work state, given their role not that long ago with auto manufacturing. But I think another state that's probably maybe a little better comparison is Indiana. Indiana has really has moved forward, and they have more jobs. In fact, they have more union members actually than they did before they were right to work. But at the end of the day, look, The folks who are here today are individuals of goodwill. I have no question. That's not what this is about. And I don't believe that this is about demonizing your opponent. And this is America, that's great. People have different opinions. Just, I think if you look at the facts of it, if you look at population gain, the states that are right to work states that have seen 13% increase in population, the states that are not. Now, maybe you could control that for other things, and maybe you could say that's not an apples to apples, but I think if you put all that data in the aggregate, what you start to see are direction signs, and those direction signs point to states that are right to work states that are growing faster, and I want to be a part of that.
Representative Scott.
Mr. Treasurer, thank you for being here. You have served in this building much longer than me. You've seen many more things than I have. But I would suggest that in your senatorial district where you served, maybe when you came into the legislature, it may not have been a ideal position to take in being in favor of right to work or supporting right to work. Are now today, as you support right to work, you have no election in front of you for at least another 4 years. You're here for the state. Are these things that you've learned and you've seen the train kind of pass us by over your time in the Senate, seeing that, you know, South Carolina has been a right to work state for 70 years. They have one of the boomingest economies in the United States. Are these some of the things that have put you in the position where you now support right to work?
Well, I've always supported right to work. I believe that one of the things I will tell you is in those rooms with site selectors, that to me has been the most instructive experience for me as chairman of that committee, was that I wanted, just like everybody in this room, I believe, wants more jobs and more opportunity in our state. But the very cold, hard facts that are presented to you when you're talking to them about economic development strategies and tax policy and labor reform, that this is an undeniable linchpin because they're looking at this purely as rational economic actors on behalf of their client. They have been hired essentially to find the best place for that entity to go to hire people, and that there is not a meeting that I had ever in that position where right to work wasn't at the very top of the list. And I'm not here to say it's number one on everybody's list, but it is very high on everybody's list. And again, we can't afford to miss those opportunities anymore. And so we're in a unique position, I think, this year to get something done.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you.
Additional questions from the committee? Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. We appreciate you coming.
Madam Chairman.
We will now go to Mr. Ray Hebner. And if I could just remind everyone that we are doing 3 minutes, but then also your witness form, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Ray Hefner. I'm a registered lobbyist. I work for the Plumbing Industry Council of the Missouri PHCC, and I represent SMATNA union contractors as well. I have previously submitted my testimony because I knew I was limited to 3 minutes. I would just like to go on record here as opposed to this legislation. I've communicated my comments so that I can stay under the 3 minutes electronically to each of you, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to Mr. Greg Hobrock.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much for the time. I've testified in front of this committee numerous times on this very subject and a lot of labor things. As a matter of fact, Representative Hunter is sitting back here. I can remember he sat in your chair and we had quite a shouting match in this room one time over this very issue. My good friend Eric Schmidt stole part of my thunder. I want to repeat it just a little bit. You don't need statistics to know what's going on. I'll tell you about statistics. They're going to be presented from both sides. Tell me who paid for the study, and I'll tell you what the study says before you ever have to listen to it. We all know that. So, but here's some things that Missouri should notice. We only have 8 congressional districts. What does that tell you? We're 13. Relative to the rest of the country, people are moving out of Missouri. Why? No jobs. True. I've heard the right to work for less so many times, I never really understood it. I really didn't. I'm the guy that says, when you ask the question, do you know a job that pays, no job paying more than a job at all? I can answer that question. We do it right now. We hire a lot of people out of the inner city of St. Louis. We put them to work. We take them out of the inner city. We put them through a training program, take them on the road. I pay them $15 an hour, working 50 hours a week. That's a $51,000 a year job. They generally last one tour of duty out, and we go back to take them out again. You know what they tell me? Economically, they're better off not to take the job. So to answer your question, yes, I can point that to you. Thirdly, I was in South Texas doing some work. Stopped to get coffee at Buc-ee's. Buc-ee was advertising for a cashier, starting cashier at Buc-ee's. Anybody want to guess in Texas what a starting cashier at Buc-ee's makes? $12 to $14 an hour. Starting cashier at Buc-ee's. Now, this is not the high-paying skill jobs. These are jobs people need. Washington, Missouri, an hour outside of St. Louis. I'm from there. You know what they're advertising for? Starting cashier at the local convenience store? Anybody want to guess? $9 an hour. Right to work state, 21% more wages. Why is that? Because there are so many jobs in Texas, employers have to pay it to get the people. When we walk into an area, the first thing we look at is, what is McDonald's paying? What are they paying at the local gas station? To attract the quality of people to enter our industry to do what we want to do, we take that number, we go 1.75 to twice to start people. That's the benchmark. So you can just look around and see the difference. You don't need statistics. Thank you very much for your time.
With 5 seconds left, you did good. All right. Any committee members would like to inquire? Thank you, Mr. Hobart.
Where do we leave our camera?
Right there on the please. Thank you. Mr. Shannon Cooper?
Afternoon, Madam Chair. Shannon Cooper today, representing the Carpenters District Council of St. Louis, Kansas City. I somewhat feel like Mel Gibson today in his portrayal of William Wallace in the movie Braveheart. We have fought a good fight, but we know where we're going. And I'm not going to belabor anyone with statistics. I can count as well as my members can count, and we know exactly what's going to happen. I know that there's nothing I can say that's going to make anybody's mind change. And my members are disappointed. I'm happy to say all 20,000 of them are out working today. They're happy it's above freezing. They're probably upset about the wind, particularly if they're doing a roofing job right now. But they're working. They'll never understand what we're doing today. I can't explain it to them. Nobody can. But we are where we are, and we understand change. Since 1882, the members of the Carpenters Council have fought adversity. We've been through recessions, we've been through depressions, and we've survived, and we've grown, and we will grow again. And we will put this behind us. We're going to do the best job we can to overcome this legislation, which in our minds and our opinions is not good for the state, but we know what's coming. But we're not going to pick up our ball and go away mad. We're going to be walking these halls, and we're going to continue to advocate for the things that are important to us: transportation, economic development, career and technical education. We want to be a part of the solution so that when kids do graduate high school, they can come into the trades, come into the training programs for free, which our dudes do pay for, and learn a skill that they can make a good living at and raise their family. So I don't know what more to say other than we're upset. And it probably reminds me of something my dad told me one time when he caught me and my brother throwing rocks at cars. And just before he got ready to whip us, he looked at us and he said, "I love you, boys,
but I'm not real proud of you right now. And that's kind of how I feel today. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions of the committee members? Yes. Representative Kleitman?
I got one question for you. You said you've been through the recessions, depressions, you survived. How many of those union workers went and took a non-union job to survive those recessions?
I have no idea, Representative.
There's a lot of them, because a lot of them work for me. Just to let you know. So a non-union job is okay when you don't have a job, even for a union worker, just so you know.
Questions from anyone else on the committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I keep wanting to say representative. Mr. Greg Murad?
Thank you. My name is Greg Murad. I'm Vice President of the National Right to Work Committee. We are a 2.8 million member citizens organization dedicated to the elimination of compulsory unionism. I'm here today on behalf of our 10,000 plus members in the state and all the Right to Work supporters in Missouri. I thank you all for taking up this bill, which would simply guarantee working men and women in Missouri the right to choose for themselves whether or not a union deserves their financial support. Now, because of their complexity, federal and state labor laws are not well understood by most people. So I'd like to open this testimony with a simple illustration that highlights the principle upon which current national and Missouri labor law rests. Imagine you are leaving the building this evening when this hearing is done, intending to go to dinner. Well, a cab pulls up to the curb in front of you. A couple guys are standing next to you. They grab you. They put you in that cab. You're sitting between them in the back seat. The cab is on its way to St. Louis. You protest. But the other two passengers will not let you out. The driver ignores you. After a couple of hours, they get out to St. Louis. They let you out of the car. But before they let you go, they demand that you cough up $100 for your share of that cab fare. You've got to be kidding, you say. You forced me to go with you. I had nothing to say about this. I'm a kidnap victim. But you don't understand, let me tell you. We had a vote, and majority rules. And unless you pay your share of this cab fare, you got a free ride. No, we have every right to make you pay. This is a democracy. I didn't want to go to St. Louis. I wanted to go out to dinner. In a nutshell, I have just illustrated how federal and state labor laws abuse the freedom of working people to earn an honest living for themselves and their families. If this taxi ride were to happen for real, the driver of the taxi would be arrested for kidnapping and extortion, and forced unionism makes no more sense. Under current law in Missouri, employees who never requested union representation can be forced to accept a labor union as their exclusive monopoly bargaining agent. Then, rubbing salt in the wound, they can be forced to pay for representation they never requested, in fact believe is acting against their interests. You see, the twin sources of big labor's power are monopoly bargaining and forced dues. And despite what you have probably heard from Missouri's union leaders, and will continue to hear from them, federal law does not require them to represent anybody. They are perfectly free under federal law to negotiate a contract that only sets the terms and conditions for their own voluntary members. But instead of exercising this perfectly legitimate option, today's union leaders consistently take advantage of the provisions of federal law to give them the tyrannical power to force every worker to submit to their monopoly representation. By exercising this power, they forbid individual workers to represent themselves. Then these same union officials turn around and falsely claim that since they represent non-paying workers, they are somehow entitled to forced dues. The underlying philosophy of those who believe in the right to work principle can best be summed up in the words of Samuel Gompers, the founder of the American Federation of Labor, who urged, quote, devotion to the fundamentals of human liberty, the principles of voluntarism. No lasting gain has ever come from compulsion. If we seek to force, we but tear apart that which united is invincible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have members who would like to inquire?
I have a question. Yeah, I'd like to inquire. I'd like to inquire.
Go right ahead, gentlemen.
Thank you. How many members do you have in Missouri?
Between 10 and 20,000, I don't have the exact.
10 and 20,000. And how many million people live in Missouri? Do you know?
No, I don't. 6 or 7.
Do you think that's representative of Missouri?
Well, members being defined as those who contribute to our organization, I think that's a pretty significant number.
10,000?
Do they pay dues?
Do they pay dues?
We don't call it dues. They pay. Excuse me, it
Excuse
is
me.
voluntary
Gonna be respectful.
for our work.
Are they members if they don't pay their fees?
The IRS does not consider themselves. They have to pay in order for them to count as members under the federal government rules, they have to pay.
Thank you.
Would everyone prefer to be out in the hall? We're not gonna have any more out there.
We prefer the same respect.
Oh, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna recess.
I'll find
We're
my way
just
to
gonna-
the door.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll go ahead and keep going.
We'd like the same respect, Rep. Rader.
Thank you, gentlemen. Do we have any other questions for this witness? Thank you so much. Mr. Mike Lewis.
Thank you, Representative and members of the committee. My name is Mike Lewis. I'm president of the Missouri AFL-CIO. And what I just handed to Representative Green was kind of a balance act for you all who have only been reading the other side of all the statistics. And a couple people have said, whoever pays for it's going to get their statistics. That could be right, but I think the other side at least deserves to be read before you all make a decision on how you're going to vote. On this particular bill, I would like to say that, in my opinion, this is nothing but government overreach. Right now, an employer and their employees have a right, whether or not to negotiate a union security clause in their contract. If the employer doesn't want it, he does not have to give it in the offer to the employee. It's not there. He does not have to do that. The employers that want it have it. The employers who don't want it don't have it. Why do they need your overreach to tell them when the governor, newly elected, just said, we need to stand down and let business do their business? And here you are overreaching into their business. A couple points I'd like to make very briefly is that, and really they've all been made except one. As the president of the AFL-CIO, in what was said here, and that is a job that pays half is better than no job at all. I don't believe that. I don't buy that. I believe that people work hard, they become trained, and they deserve what they get. And if they want to stand together and negotiate a union contract with any employer and get what they deserve, they should get it without your interference. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Representative Miller.
Let me get you an electrician.
To inquire. To inquire.
Proceed.
Thank you. Okay. Your statement is that, essentially is that they already have the right to negotiate, not negotiate in the state of Missouri. There's been several that said because there's federal law that says that that's the case.
It's a mandatory subject of bargaining.
Then why, the last 4 years that I've been to industrial site locators, they've said over and over again that the main problem with coming to Missouri and setting up large manufacturing jobs, which we are not getting, is because we are not right to work. If it's already allowed, then what's the big deal?
You know, I can't answer on behalf of greedy corporations. I can tell you that the reason they won't come here if we're not right to work is because they're greedy. They want more for them and less for workers.
Yeah, but they can already choose to use, it makes no difference. So then why would they choose to do that?
I don't know.
Well, I'm just curious as if they can already do it. It just doesn't make any sense. But in any event, I guess that's my question I don't, it does not make sense to me that you can already do this stuff that you're basically saying that this law has been done. If you've done it, then what do you care?
What do I care? I care because you're reaching into the business of the labor organizations that come under my umbrella. And I don't want you to do that. I don't want you interfering between an employer and an employee.
Already done.
No, it's not. They've got the right, no, right now, they've got the right to negotiate it or not. You're taking away their right to negotiate it if they want to.
That sounds like freedom.
Sounds like bull.
Sounds like freedom. Thank you, sir.
Representative Barry,
To inquire.
proceed.
Thank you. So we're living in a different world, or the world that we're living in right now is definitely Missouri Republican controlled, and then at the national level it's Republican controlled. So let me ask a question. We've talked about the freeloader issue, and you just handed out the paper that you have.
The Briefing Center paper?
Yeah,
Yes.
and in the background, it has the 47 Taft-Hartley Act, basically saying that you have to represent everyone, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, and that's a issue because of freeloading, if you do right to work. Would you be for removing that requirement at the national level so that you only had to represent union members that are dues-paying members?
Well, Representative, I'm not trying to be rude and not answer your question, but I just want to say that my concern is for Missouri workers and my 180,000 members of the AFL-CIO in Missouri, and for them.
Okay, then I'll change the question.
Okay.
If it was within our authority here to change that so that you did not have to represent what you quote as freeloaders, you would be for that then, is that correct?
Well, there's more to it than freeloading and representation. Do they have a right to attend the training centers and get the same training that the other people do who pay out of their dues to build these training centers and get the training? Do they get the same benefits? Do they get the health and welfare protection? Do they get the wages? Do they get the pension? Now, if you take all that away from them, I might consider it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Representative Green,
Inquiry.
proceed.
You just mentioned the difference in training, and that's what, earlier in my question, I was trying to get an understanding on the training and the skills. What's the difference, you can clarify that. What's the difference between, again, the union training and the skills and the non-union? And I'll be quiet, thank you.
I can't answer the question of the non-union training because I don't know. But right now, every single building trade has their own training center, and it's funded by union dues that go to that union. And those members enjoy keeping up to date, keeping safe, and continuing to provide an excellent job, very efficient workers. But that's funded through their union dues. The employers don't fund that.
Yes, sir.
Just a follow-up. In my inquiry of the unions, I always ask that question. You just throw it in on it. But I'm really trying to get the difference because it was mentioned earlier, there were quite a few people that had left the union, but they still care. Myself, I'm trying to figure out where all this fits together and our training and skills as we move forward.
It wouldn't be the same requirements, and it would be up to that individual contractor as to whether or not he paid for those employees to go to different training centers. So I hate to say this, but I don't know.
Thank you.
Representative Parker,
To inquire.
Thank you. Sir, does this bill prohibit employers then from hiring trained union workers?
No, sir.
Okay. So you would have, the employer would have a choice as to who to hire. They could hire a non-union trained worker or a union trained worker.
With or without this bill, they have that right.
And the argument is that union workers are well trained, right?
Absolutely well
It
trained.
seems to me that then it would give them a leg up on getting a job.
Absolutely.
Then they'd have a choice.
They've already got a choice.
Sounds like this is good economics then. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Tyson? Proceed.
Is it your intent, do you want everybody worker in the state to be in a union, or do you matter? Does it matter?
We represent people who come to the craft that would represent them the best. And that's who we represent.
Okay, you might have misunderstood, and I'll just get to the point. Most of my experiences are personal. This summer I had a job. You guys set up a ticket on me. And I got a video to back this up. The guy's first, I asked him why. He said, because I didn't pay enough. I asked him what he paid. I was paying 1.5 times what he wanted. So, and I got benefits and a pension. So even after that, they kept the picket up on me. I talked to the VA, he kept it up. So the guy told me, I got on video. He goes, my problem is you're not union, you're stealing our work. And I got a video. So that's, I gotta know, is that your intention?
No, sir.
But he's with your union.
He's with his own union. We are the umbrella organization.
Okay, well, you come by my office, I'll show it to you, the video. But I questioned him, even the VA, after I explained to him. He had no argument, so he's falsely accusing me of something. And everybody walked by the street, he told them that, and it was a lie. And the guy standing there said, it's because you're not union. He didn't care what I paid. He didn't care that I paid benefits. Strictly, I was stealing his work.
I'll come by, Representative.
Okay, I appreciate it. Just to prove it, you know.
Okay.
So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Madam Chair, I'd like to leave in the spirit of no redundancy. People who wanted to testify, but Dave Cook, United Food and Commercial Workers, Local 655, Richard Craighead, United Steel Workers, Kenny Mendes, AFL-CIO, Luana Gifford, AFT, Jason Hayden, Sheet Metal and Air Rail and Transportation, Doug Payant, Sheet Metal 36, Adam McBride, Eastern Missouri Labor District Council, Mike Maringer, CWA, David Hybretter, IBW/State Utility Workers. Have all that forms for you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Ms. Mary Hill?
I'm Mary Hill, and I'm from Liberty, Missouri. And first of all, Mr. Lewis was talking about government overreach. The original massive government overreach was when the NLRA was enacted in 1935 that forced all union members to pay union dues. And then the Wagner Act was passed a few years later and allowed for right to work laws. So no. Right to work, if anything, is just undoing what was done in 1935, which was massive overreach. So I just want to say that first of all. I think unions have contributed a lot, and not all unions are bad. There's good ones, and there's real bad ones. But they're about workers, and they're not about anything else. And when the NLRA was enacted, it was about workers forming unions, not union bosses and heads of corporations, not neutrality agreements. Neutrality agreement is something that I understand. Two unions, the National Nurses United and the SEIU, came to a hospital I worked in Kansas City, and they started card checking. My employer was gagged I just didn't know what in the world was going on. I wasn't against any union. I didn't like all this politics. I was sick and tired of that. That's what I'd heard about unions. I grew up singing, look for the union label. And I looked for that union label. So I felt positively about them. But this was not about workers. It was not about representation at all. And that's what unions are supposed to do. And in the state of Missouri, they don't necessarily have to represent because they're going to get that money regardless. What happened at that hospital happened to thousands of nurses and healthcare workers across the country by the same two unions. And I had to do something about it. It was so wrong because they were doing everything they could to keep people from knowing what was really going on. I mean, we were truly an unsuspecting workforce. They were not there for anybody's benefit but their own. And they spread around a whole lot of political magazines about how awesome Obamacare was and a whole lot of things. All I know is when that happened, I hated unions so bad. And I don't hate them. I don't hate them anymore. I recognize their value. And frankly, they're down to 8% because they're being killed in Missouri by the people that are in this room back here who are not, I mean, you don't grow members by going and card checking an unsuspecting workforce, making promises that are not necessarily going to come true, and gagging your employer.
Ms. Hill. Thank you so much. Just one moment, please, and we'll need a witness form. Do we have anyone that has questions of this witness? Seeing none, thank you so much. Mr. Tim Green.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tim Green. I'm here representing 206 electrical, data, and communication contractors on the eastern side of the state. I have a testimony sheet from our representative, our association, but I just want to go through a few points of the bill instead of being redundant on the testimony. And if you don't mind, I'll just use House Bill 42. If you look at the very bottom, it says any person who directly or indirectly violates any provision of this section shall be guilty of a Class C misdemeanor. These are the penalty provisions to employers. Any person injured as a result of any violation or threatened violation of this section shall be entitled to injunctive relief against any and all violators or persons threatening violations. Any person injured as a result of any violation or threatened violation of this section may recover any and all damages of any character resulting. This is a directory of all the contractors I represent. The largest being Pinecrest, that has a employee base of over 500 people. The smallest being LSR Electric, that resides a one-man shop in O'Fallon. Now in construction, as those of you in construction know, when work gets slow, you lay people off. So let's say I have a 20-man workforce and the job comes down and I lay off 10 of them. Aren't you giving one of those 10 individuals the right to take an employer to civil court and say, you let me go because I did not pay into the union? It says it, and you're putting those individuals in that. So as you look through this bill, and I understand the numbers and the issue, I ask that you seriously look at the language you put in this bill. It brings criminal charges against an employer and allows an employee to go to civil court against that employer. In closing, these employers that I'm speaking on behalf of, so you know, these 206, they yearly pay out $53 million a year in health and welfare benefits to all their workers. Their workforce combined is 4,000 people.
They pay out about $50 million a year in pension benefits. And they fund their own apprenticeship program at the cost of about $7 to $8 million a year. So I don't want to go into all of the discussion on the right to work, but I do, in the association I represent, want to bring forth that you are criminalizing employers and allowing employees to take them civilly to court. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Right at 3 minutes. Swell.
I had practice.
Representative Parker?
To inquire. Yes, sir. Green, thank you for your testimony. I'm a little confused, though. I see this as, on almost all of these bills here, the prosecuting attorney of each county and the attorney general of the state shall investigate and use by any means necessary to, I guess, compel or ensure active enforcement, which shall include an injunction. That's only criminal. That is not civil.
What about subsection 2 on page 2? Any person injured as a result of any violation or threatened violation of this section may recover any and all damages of any character resulting from such violation or threatened violation, including costs and reasonable attorney fees.
Okay, you were referring to the prosecuting attorney though earlier. It's no criminal cause of action. That's not civil though.
Well, I said civil. The criminal part is first page, line 16, subsection 4. And you are criminalizing the employer, but then I also mentioned the civil, and that is subsection 2 on page 2. So you are putting employers, and I asked that
causes of action, and there is a criminal and a civil, just to clarify that.
Yes.
And don't you think there should be any cause of action? You suggesting there shouldn't be a cause of action for violating the law?
But well, let me put you in the situation of a contractor. We have a very, sometimes work's good, sometimes work is not good. I've worked in the construction industry, I've had to lay people off. You get a disgruntled employee that you lay off, you're allowing him a cause of action to take an employer to court civilly.
You don't change the burden of proof though. That employee would still have the burden of proof.
But aren't you continuing, yes,
but
lawsuits, isn't that what's always talked about by employers? I'm speaking on behalf of
I guess
employers.
there's work comp form too in that regard as well. I mean, there's many causes of actions. You still have to follow the law. You still have the burden of proof. And I mean, I think if you're going to craft a law, you should have some repercussions, albeit criminally, which would be by through the prosecuting attorney. An individual would not have the choice to prosecute or not. The prosecuting attorney, as attorney general, would. And then if you chose to prosecute your cause of action civilly, you still would have to prove those elements there on line 20 through 24, subsection 5, subsection 2. I mean, you still have the burden of proof. You still are given the right to a trial, which we are afforded in this country. And you want to take that away?
Not frivolous lawsuits.
We're looking at tort reform later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have additional questions of this witness? No?
Madam Chairman, to inquire, please.
Proceed.
From your perspective, why, and I recognize what side of the aisle you're on, but why
Excuse me,
criminalize?
sir, I didn't say what side of the aisle
I
I'm
mean-
on. I am sitting here on behalf of 206 employers.
Sure.
Pay out $53 million a year in health and welfare benefits.
Okay.
With a workforce of 4,000.
Okay. So, but I understand that's what I meant.
Okay.
You represent,
Yes, I
am
am.
I correct?
That
Okay.
is correct.
From your perspective, why do we need to criminalize, why do we need a criminalization clause in this process?
I understand the representative's point. Whenever you try to pass a law, you want to pass some type of penalty so that the law is enforced. That is the reason for the penalty provisions. All I'm saying is for you to seriously look at how you have drafted these penalty provisions, because I think you are making it much more, you are creating more civil litigation than really needs to intend. Our employers, some of them have been signatory for over 100 years. That's part of their business plan. And now you're saying you can no longer keep this as your business plan, even though you've done it for over 100 years. And that's a fact. Guarantee Electric, if you research them, and Bryner Electric, they were founded one in 1800 and one in the early 1900s, and they were signatory to NECA. That's how they created the apprenticeship programs. But they said, we've been doing this business for over 100 years. Policies in place. Now you're telling us we can't do them, so we're going to try to figure out if it becomes law, how to go around it. But at the same time, we're also going to allow you to be criminally charged and possibly civilly sued. I got some issues with that. So try to figure it out. Maybe look at other states, how they implement the law. But I think you seriously need to look at penalty provisions of this bill.
So let me ask you this, if I may, Madam Chair. Do you think criminalization in this act is a massive government overreach?
To a business, yes.
So you're saying, if I hear you correctly, that doing this is a massive government overreach to a business and your employers that you represent?
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
you are criminalizing what they've been doing for 100 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have testimony, if I could just leave, that you could share with the committee. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Do you have time for one more question? Representative Greer has not.
Greer, yes, ma'am.
Greer, I'm so sorry.
To inquire.
Proceed.
Sir, you've suggested that perhaps the penalties that we put into this are not appropriate. What suggestions would you have for us as an alternative penalty? Are you suggesting, because we have to have the ability to enforce, is it caps, is it punitive damages, attorney's fees? And what would you suggest as an alternative?
Well, I suggest you somehow work it out with those individual employers that have been having this as a business policy, that you possibly exempt them, which I know you will not do, but somehow lessen the burden on the employer. You're asking me to solve an issue that is detrimental to employers. I'm just asking you not to be detrimental to employers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Vinny Fernaccio, pronounce that wrong.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee, my name is Vincent Vernuccio, and I am Director of Labor Policy at the McEnroe Center for Public Policy, a research public policy institution based in Midland, Michigan. Thank you for inviting me here and allowing me the opportunity to testify. Before I get started, let's go back and define exactly what right to work is and what right to work isn't. We've heard a lot of it today. Right to work is about freedom. All right to work does is allow a worker to choose whether or not to pay a union and still keep their jobs. The only thing right to work takes away from a union is the ability to get a worker fired for not paying them. Workers, unions, they can still collectively bargain with employers. They can still negotiate over anything that they could before a right to work law, after a right to work law. They can still negotiate over wages. They can still negotiate over hours, over working conditions. The only thing a union can't do under a right to work law is say, pay us or you'll lose your job. That's it. Stripping everything else away, that's all right to work does. But now you look at the states that have passed right to work. And I won't bore you with statistics. We've heard a lot of statistics back and forth. I've presented a one-pager for the record. All the statistics are on here. But we see states with right to work laws, they have higher job growth. They have higher wage growth. When you factor in cost of living, workers are making more. They have higher population growth. Their economies are doing better. I'm from Michigan. In Michigan, our wages have gone up almost 10%, over 9.2% since right to work took effect. In Indiana, wages have gone up since right to work took effect. That's $70 to $1 a week more, weekly wages for Michigan workers. since right to work took effect, and $102 more per week in weekly wages for workers in Indiana since right to work took effect. So we had the question before, what's paying more, job or no job? Well, I tell you, Michigan, Indiana, even West Virginia, the recent right to work states, a job in that state with right to work pays more than a job in that state for right to work. And in those states, populations are going up. Unemployment is down. In Michigan, our unemployment has dropped by almost half since right to work went into effect. We are cutting the least amount of unemployment checks in almost 30 years. Well, I want that to sink in. In almost 30 years, we are cutting the least amount of unemployment checks. Jobs are coming back. The population is coming back. Seeing the same thing in Indiana. Seeing the same thing in Wisconsin. Seeing the same thing in West Virginia. And soon we'll be seeing the same thing in Kentucky. And I really hope we get to see the same thing here in Missouri. Higher wages, better economy, more jobs, lower unemployment. And with that, Madam Chairman, I would be happy to take questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Representative Berry?
Good part. Thank you. Just a couple of questions, because I heard the statistics earlier. You have it on your sheet here. And don't you think that it might be a little disingenuous to look at the unemployment rate in Michigan and Indiana for that time and pick the high when it was at the depth of the recession that the unemployment was at that rate, and then say now we're at 4.8 or 4.9 when the national average has trended down all across the board?
Well, except for Missouri, where we far outpaced Missouri in increasing unemployment. If you want to talk about the high, when Governor Snyder took office in 2009, unemployment was higher. And if you want me to use those statistics, unemployment in Michigan since Governor Snyder has took office, since the heart of the Great Recession, has dropped 10 points. 10 points. And that's a combination of smart tax policy, lowering regulations, and giving workers the freedom to choose whether or not to pay a union and still keep their jobs.
Okay. So you're saying that Missouri's unemployment is sub 5% also. You're saying that our unemployment, how's that affect in the state of Missouri?
I believe the state of Missouri, the unemployment is above 5%. It's above 5% right now.
5.1. Okay. And you're talking about 4.9 for Michigan. Okay. Relatively close is all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying those figures are a little bit skewed from my perspective. Okay, and the next thing that I'd like to ask, because of all the people, except for the freshmen that are just in this, listening to this debate, I've looked at it from the left, from the right, from the up, from the down, and I have yet to figure out who's right, who's wrong, and have voted accordingly. When you don't know something, you stay on the fence. And you get hit from both sides, okay? But looking at this, okay, so Kentucky was the 27th state, right?
Right.
And Missouri will be, barring something extremely unforeseen, the 28th state. So let's just fast forward and let's say that the pure philosophy that we're talking about here goes forward and it's all 50 states that are right to work, because that's about freedom and it's about some of the other things you've argued. Then please help me figure out, will growth then be from, are we going to be taking from other countries? How are the growth between the states going to take place? Because right now, what I think you would be arguing, you tell me, is the states that are not right to work are losing jobs to states that are right to work. Is that one of your suppositions?
They are, and also population. We've seen the population moving net, much more people moving out of the forced unionism or the non-right to work states, and they are moving to the right to work states, and that is one of the statistics that we have on here. Yes.
Yep, absolutely. But you would be advocating that all states be right to work states, would you not?
I believe in freedom, and Representative, if you're on the fence, I would definitely say, if you don't know, well, this statistic is correct or that statistic is correct, I would ask you, please just err on the side of freedom, which is very explicit here in right to work.
Would you please answer my question? If all the states are right to work, as you're advocating for, then how do you foresee the competitive benefits and non-benefits? You'll be all on the same playing field, right?
Well, I will give you that right to work does make a state more competitive, and I would argue that in Missouri, you definitely do not want to be one of the last states. You want to be within this top 30.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you. Please be sure to leave a witness form. Mr. Otto Fain. Again, I apologize if I'm pronouncing his last name wrong.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Otto Fain, speaking on behalf of Missouri NEA. We would want to speak. Senator Pierce, former senator, is treating me well. I try to keep myself to under 30 seconds. Our concern, we just want to interject because we've heard the testimony on other issues. The impact, from what we can tell, our impression is that there's reason to believe that the proposals might reduce income and adversely affect worker incomes. Also, union workers tend to be more likely to have employer-sponsored health care. The higher incomes also tend to associate with stability of housing. All those factors play a positive role in supporting the status of a child and their ability to be healthy, in school, ready to learn. And so we have some concerns that this bill, if that's the impact, it may have an impact on the lives of the students and their educational success. And that's a paramount concern to our members. And so for those reasons, we would urge the committee not to move forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Do we have questions for this witness? Representative Miller?
To inquire.
Proceed.
Okay, just a real quick question.
Sure.
Impact on children. Is it better for the child for a parent to have a job?
It's definitely something that is a factor. All those things are factors. They're all important.
Like you said,
I mean,
the
mere fact of having a job. Well,
are you saying reduction in wage is bad, but if they had no job and then they have a job, that's got to be better for them.
Okay, so let's look at the impact of very low wage income for kids if their parent has to work 3 minimum wage jobs. Having the parental resources.
So it's better for them to be on welfare at that point.
It's better for a parent to have a job that allows them to also be available for their student, for their child, so they have time to spend with their child rather than having to be absent, leaving potentially the child at risk because they're not available to be there because they have to work the 3 jobs. That's a real concern in this community and in the United States in general, is that there is an impact on students and an impact on children when parents have to work so many jobs.
So it would be better if they had no job?
I did not say that.
Okay. Well, I'm questioning welfare of children there. It's just interesting question.
Yeah, high quality, good paying jobs are really the thing that we want to try to seek to have for the parents of our students. They'll help the success of the families and also the success of the students across the state.
Amazing when we agree on it.
Glad to hear it.
Do we have other questions for this witness? Yes, Representative.
To inquire.
Proceed.
So I appreciate what you're saying. What about the mother that, I'm going to name drop a grocery store, I apologize. What about the mother that works at Deerbergs? Or what about the 18-year-old that works at Deerbergs is a bagger, right? I don't know their exact wages, but I do know that there's a representative in this building whose son is a bagger. His union dues, and he'll tell you that his union does nothing for him. He doesn't want to stand with that union. He wants to bargain on his own. How does that help? How does that help him get into college and pay for his books and his higher education? Taking his pay below minimum wage.
I'm sorry, President, I can't speak to the specifics of that, but we've seen.
I mean, it fits along the line of what you're saying.
Okay, what I can say is that we have seen evidence that when you do this as a statewide basis, it has profound impact across the state. That's our concern.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Matt Putnam. And please be sure to fill out a witness.
Thank you for taking my statement. I'm not coming to you guys today to bash the union at all. I am a current union member in the Kansas City area. I started with the company I'm at in 1998 and have been with them for 19 years now. And when I first got hired on, they said, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to have to join the union. And they explained to me the benefits, and I said, great, I'm going to get company representation or union representation for the company. I'm going to get a contract negotiation, and I'm going to get a pension. So 10 years go by, everything's great, making plans for the future. 15 years goes by, still great. That was until May 20th of last year, when I got a letter from our pension fund. I would probably never ever quit the union, even if right to work did happen. I've been with those brothers for 19 years. But I'd like to think, since only 2 out of the 3 things that were promised to me are being fulfilled, I should have the right to choose whether I want to take that money and invest it somewhere else the little time I have left. So that's about all I have to say. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Do we have questions for this witness? Representative Scott?
I appreciate you coming up here and testifying, knowing that you're still in your union and who knows what you're going to suffer. I appreciate that. That takes a lot. But can I ask what union you're in? Are you a Teamster? Teamster. So the Teamsters, I know this, and this is the most important part of right to work for me, is what you're talking about. So how many more years do you have until you retire? 11. And your letter that came to you said that whatever you pay into your pension for the next 11 years, you're gonna lose 40% of that? What did your letter say?
It said it'll be empty in 10 years.
Empty in 10 years.
So I still have to pay the $46 each month, knowing that I'm not going to get it, benefit from it.
So your union wants to still collect money from you, and you still have to be committed to them, but they can send you a letter saying there's going to be nothing left for you. And what you want to do, all you want to do is know that you want to take care of your family when you retire, correct? Correct. So you want to be able to take that $4 or $5 an hour, whatever you pay into it, and you want to be able to invest that money on your own rather than let the Teamsters continue to drain it and spend it the way they see fit. You want to take care of your retirement the way you see fit.
I would like to know that I have that option. Yes.
Correct. Correct. I really appreciate that, and that's my biggest thing in right to work. Thank you for having the guts to come up here and talk about that. I appreciate it. Sir.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Ms. Cindy McDaniel.
Madam Chairman. I am on the committee for the Missouri Kansas City to protect pensions. And I just heard what he said, and you need to talk to someone else on how that is, because the Teamsters did not spend that money. It was in a fund. You need to know the whole story before you get too excited about that, okay? We've heard a lot of people saying here today, it's high on everybody's expectations. All the other places want it. We've gone down from 10% to 4% if you're right to work, and I'm so glad, Representative Berry, that you clarified that, because it's all over the nation. That's the trend of that. It wasn't just because of that, and I'm glad that that was clarified on that. But the words higher wages for women and minorities, better benefits, safe working conditions, job security, collective bargaining, these are words that bring hope and security and confidence in all American workers, all of us. But this has not always been part of the workers' promise. I want you to look at me. Me today, I stand for thousands of people in Missouri that is against the right to work. 10,000 people do not stand for the right to work. And I also stand for the thousands of people that you have taken away the right for us to vote for this. You all are going to make this decision for us. We have the right to make that decision and bring it to a vote of the people. Many years ago, my husband and I, when we started out, he worked for a non-union truck line. He didn't have any benefits. He worked 70 hours a week. And finally, one day, he had a chance to apply for a union job. And he took it. It doubled his salary, and he had benefits for his family. And if he had stayed in that job of a non-union, we would not have had to buy cars. We would not have gone on trips. We would have not have built a house. We would have not have sent our children to college. But we did. And our children did go to college because their parents made a living wage. A living wage. And so they are both productive here in Missouri. They did not go to another state. They are here in Missouri because they are Missourians and they care about what goes on here. I think you guys are our voice. You are our voice. This man that sat up here from Michigan is not our voice. He was paid to come to sway you guys' vote. We are the ones that you need to listen to, not somebody from out of state. I expect that. We voted for you. I voted for some of you. I heard a representative say today, this right to work has nothing to do with the unions. Really? Really? I can't even believe he said that. I ask you to please, please not do this on a fast forward like it's been promised. It's been in the papers. It's been on the radio. It's been on the news. We're going to push this through as fast as we can. Why would you do that? Why? Are you afraid that the people of Missouri would vote against this and you wouldn't have the control?
Ms. Cindy, thank you so much. Your 3 minutes is up. And with all due respect, I would like to say that our governor campaigned on this issue and he was voted by an overwhelming majority.
I understand that. But everybody didn't feel, they didn't do that on everything he felt like. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am. But he was voted in with this issue being one of
So,
his primary targets.
Is that a question for me?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I thought I was taking questions.
Thank you for your testimony.
Pat Clark.
Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. This is what this is all about. Give everybody a voice. Let me ask you a couple things. One is, a couple years ago, this legislature considered putting right to work on the ballot. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And do you know how that went?
No.
Just a couple years ago. You don't know the result of that.
Would you tell me?
Yeah, it didn't pass. So it didn't get put on the ballot like you're requesting now. And so Missourians, naturally, we're a representative republic, right? They went out and they elected a supermajority of people that believed in certain values. And you sent people to Jefferson City. Everybody in the state sent people to Jefferson City to represent them. And maybe issues that you disagree with. There was a chance to get this on the ballot a couple years ago and let Missouri have a voice on it. And it was stopped. And so now the voice was given to Missourians around the state. And they chose a legislature and a governor who are very, very much in support of this. So that's the first. I just want to make you aware of that. We had the chance a couple years ago to put it on the ballot and it wasn't done. Second thing is the gentleman, you spoke to the gentleman speaking before you who courageously came, just as you have courageously come and spoken and asked questions. And
given your viewpoints, which we all appreciate. I don't think there's anybody on this committee that doesn't appreciate the citizens that come in here and lend a voice to their issues. And we'll walk out of this room, whether the media will report it or not, and we'll all shake hands on both sides of the party. I think for most of the people on this committee, we will support each other, and we will be cordial outside these walls, inside these walls. My question to you is in regards to the gentleman before you. If you were in a union, and maybe you have been, and you were paid, just as a hypothetical, you were paying into a pension program that you were working hard to provide for your family, and they sent you a letter saying that the pension program you're paying into will not be existent in a decade, a year before you are allowed to retire. Would you think that that's fair?
You see my shirt?
I do see your shirt.
I want you to know I'm very aware of what you're saying. And I want you to know that we are working hard on this.
Great.
We have worked for 2 years. The legislator put in the MPRA bill. That was the biggest problem. But that's another whole story. If you want me to be up here for 20 hours, I can tell you about what he had to say and what I have to say. This shirt, we've been to Washington. So I don't think you want to get into that part of it. If you do, that's fine.
It was a simple question, ma'am. Do you believe that it's fair that somebody pays into a pension program and that they don't get the benefit of the pension program that they're paying into?
That pension program has been misused and abused, and the GAO is looking into that. So it's much broader than me just saying, I don't want to do that, or I don't. Of course we wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to do that. Just like you wouldn't want to work for $8 an hour rather than be at home.
So your opinion would be that even though it's misused and abused, as you just said, they should pay into it anyway.
Do you have a pension fund?
I work privately here locally, and I don't have a pension. I pay into a 401k.
Okay. Most places have a 401k, and they don't have a choice in that either. It's not just a pension.
I choose to pay into my 401k.
Okay, you do.
The question is, what you just said is that it's been misused and abused. So do you believe that it is fair that someone has to be forced to continue to pay into a pension program that you yourself stated was misused and abused?
I do not believe that. But I want to tell you, you do not have to work at a union. You do not, if you choose a job.
Thank you for answering the
question. If you have a job.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for answering the question. Do we have additional questions for this witness? Representative Miller?
Inquire.
Proceed.
Thank you. Pension, you've got the pension shirt on.
I do.
Great. And this is the thing I don't get, that I don't quite understand. Some pensions are in trouble. And would it help those pensions to have more people paying into it?
Of course.
Okay. That's what I don't try to get. And this is stuff, I mean, Tennessee, it's true, all these places, the only places that are growing in union membership are right to work states. So why would you not want more union membership?
We do want more union membership. That's not the questions here today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Steve Hunter? Please be sure to leave a witness form.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Steve Hunter. By default, Missourians for Right to Work. I've worked with the organization for a number of years. Greg Johnson's supposed to be here and call in sick and email everything to me. And I broke my glasses, kind of like you did, you know. I guess it's kind of my fault because I've served here from 2000 to 2008, chaired the same committee that Bill Lant does for 6 years. 2004, I introduced Right to Work. 2005, I introduced the very language Representative Rader's carrying. I think it's the same language that's in the Senate. The reason I did that is because it came out of National Right to Work, and they've got a track record. They've been to court and everything else, whatever. That is the language to use if you're going to pass the bill, nothing. I've messed around with this thing. I left here in '08. I watched all kinds of things go through here, putting it on the ballot. We killed that because it's an easy way to get out of it. Paycheck protection, I think Greg and I killed that 3 times, and we don't even make any money. It just didn't make any sense to me. Right to work, if you look at it, we've gone through all the figures and everything else. When it gets right down to, it's all about competition. I think someone asked the question, said, what happens if it's all 50? All 50 states get it. It means we're all on all equal footing. It means you compete. You get out, you flat out, you get after it. And I think there were 23 states when I introduced it. Now there's, what, 27? We got to hurry up because New Hampshire's going to get it. That's either 28th or 29th. There's going to be 21 states left. 2 of them, Alaska and Hawaii, we're not going to be able to cherry pick. So it needs to get done as fast as possible. Some other things that need to happen. Along with that, have the proper work comp stuff, language, laws, unemployment. I mean, it goes on and on. There's a litany, and it is so competitive to have to bring these in. I just read where Toyota is bringing back $10 billion into this country. I don't know if anybody else read it. My question was, are they going to put another plant somewhere? Do we have an opportunity to get it, or are they just going to add on to the ones that they're going to have? There's only so many car companies that we're going to be able to bring in here. Basically, that's about it. You know, everything's been answered, and we've gone through all the statistics, and so I'm open to questions for anybody who wants to ask any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions, anyone?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Is there someone that is opposed? Please come up. Lynn?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Lynn Schlosser. Here today on behalf of Alan Gillihan and the Village of Kansas City, we submitted our testimony to the committee in opposition alongside bills and also attached it to my forms to go on the record.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for this witness? We have a Mr. Matt Morrow to please come up in favor.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Pleased to be with you today. My name is Matt Morrow. I'm president of the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce in Springfield, Missouri. We're a chamber that represents 1,800 employers in our community, in our region. And we've been supporters of right-to-work legislation for a number of years. And our reason is apolitical. It's strictly a matter of economic development and competing well with those communities and states with whom we compete on a regular basis. For us, just to give a little bit of background for the work that we do, we're the lead entity for an economic development partnership in our community, in our region. That means that we meet regularly with existing companies, about 150 meetings a year across the table with current companies in our region, and ask a lot of questions about what they would need in order to expand. And maybe more pertinent to this conversation, we meet 150 times a year with site selection consultants from across the U.S. as well. And most of the companies that they represent are U.S. companies, but they also represent international companies as well, who are considering where they're going to expand or relocate for their next move. Daily competition for jobs. You've heard it said here before. So the thing that I would like to reiterate and stress, the data, some of the data that's been shared here today, I could certainly reinforce and bring supporting evidence of that. But I think what I'd like to just share is our experiences. As we have those conversations with those site selection consultants who ultimately are directing, who those finalists are that these companies are considering going to be a part of which communities. We hear over and over again that there are a number of issues. It's a mix, it's a recipe. There are a whole lot of factors that weigh in. Workforce development is an enormous factor right now, and a whole number of other things. They need to be able to have everything that they need to be successful. The tax environment is important. But one of the things that differentiates and separates right to work is the fact that it has been for many companies a threshold issue, which is to say that you're either on the list for the company or you're not on the list for the company. And so we don't even get to compete for a significant portion of the projects that are out there. One of the things we do as a Chamber of Commerce, in addition to meeting with those site selection consultants, is every single year we go meet and take about 60 community leaders with us to another community in the U.S., a peer city, and find out what they're doing well and how we can maybe learn from that. And in the last several years, several of the communities that we've attended have been in right-to-work states. And in the course of doing that, we meet not only with community leaders in those areas, but we meet with major employers as well. And so it wasn't that long ago that we were in Huntsville, Alabama, and we had a chance to meet with chief executives for about 5 different companies who had, over the course of the last decade, chosen to move to Alabama. And we had to ask a lot of questions about what that recipe was for them, how they got there. And among the factors was right to work, and every single one of them said that they only considered right to work states. These are high-paying jobs. These are good jobs. They tell us that they compete fiercely for talent where they are, and so they compete on benefits and wages and everything else, but they simply want to be able to have an environment where they can build that culture themselves.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Do we have questions of this witness? No? Thank you. Opposed?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Edward Dessoignier. I'm Executive Director of the Heavy Constructors Association in Kansas City. We're an employer association made up of construction companies that build highways, public works, airports, you name it. We're appearing before you in opposition to legislation that your committee is considering. We feel it is detrimental to the interests of our employers in the greater Kansas City area. We've taken note of some of the arguments that have been presented here before the committee. Quite frankly, we do not agree with the majority of those. We have had very positive relationships with our 4 unions that we've negotiated contracts with for over 67 years. It is a very good relationship that we have that provides us with the trained workers that we need in order to be able to build public works in our state. Rather than take up a bunch of time talking about union dues, please understand union dues are only one component of the contracts that we negotiate with our labor organizations. We have the wage component, the increases that are triggered in per year, what have you. We also have the benefits side of it. Union dues are a part of the wage. They are a relationship between the employee and that union leadership. That union leadership is elected by those employees. So at any point in time, please understand that if those employees are up in arms about those union dues, they certainly have the right to unelect the officials who are negotiating those dues. So with that, I'll close my comments and stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Do we have questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Please be sure to leave a witness on. Do we have someone for? Please come forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Brian Bunn. I represent the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'd like to go on record in support of the bill. I would echo what some of my previous fellow witnesses have said. Right to work is not the silver bullet, but it's part of the recipe to spur economic development. We embarked on a strategic plan a few years ago and hired a Gallup research company in order to avoid claims that there were certain biases in our study. And what we learned from there and from their work from site selectors, and I want to point out, site selectors are not hired to find a place to relocate and expand. They are hired to cross states off the list. And just like Treasurer Schmidt said, right to work might not be 1, it might not be 5, 2, 3, 4, or 5, but it is on the list, and it needs to be on there. Another thing that we did learn from those folks is Missouri is operating at only 60% of its manufacturing outflow that it could be. Only 60% that it could be. We also learned that from the ages of 25 to 44, Missourians are leaving. We have a net outflow of people leaving the state of Missouri. So we educate those people and they leave for opportunity that's out of state. We want to reverse that here at the Missouri Chamber. Between 25 and 44, those are your prime earning years. That's when you set down roots, and that's what expands your tax base. And folks, that's economic development. I want to point out again, right to work is not the silver bullet, but it is in the Missouri Chamber's eyes for the last 10 years. This is not a surprise, the language that's before you, a priority, and we look forward to this committee and the legislature taking bold actions and moving this as quickly as possible. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Do we have questions of this witness? Stephen, thank you so much. Opposed?
Good evening, Chairwoman. John Bowman, a proud dues-paying member of the United Auto Workers. I come on behalf of our hardworking membership who proudly works through our negotiated private contracts, high-paying wage, which also adds value through true economic development, because in our industry, because of the salaries, we create 5 other jobs. So with that being said, we oppose to this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have that consent? Do we have questions for this witness?
Thank you.
Or?
Madam Chairwoman, thank you. My name is Terry Bowman. I'm the president and founder of an organization called Union Conservatives. Union Conservatives is an educational nonprofit organization that educates union members on the benefits of free market principles, and right to work is one of those principles, or as we like to call it, workplace freedom. But I want to bring all of this testimony and make it a little personal for me. You see, I worked at Ford Motor Company for over 20 years now. In 19 of those years, I was a forced UAW member. Now, over that time, I've watched and witnessed union taking me and my dues for granted. But they can do that, can't they? In a forced unionism state, they can either do a good job or a bad job, and there's no repercussions. Union members have to continue to pay dues whether or not the union does a good job. Imagine, if you will, a restaurant that people are forced to spend their money at. What's going to happen to the service, to the quality of the food and the cost of the food? They're all going to suffer because there's no competition until another employer comes in, another restaurant, and there's actually competition for that money. However, if you grant union workers the additional rights, freedoms, and protections of a right to work law, union officials will have to pull their feet off the desk, have to come back from the golf courses, and actually do what they were created to do, and that's to represent their workers in the realms of the workplace. You see, you will be creating the incentive for union officials to do a good job. That's something that's currently lacking, and they have to then work for their membership. You see, over the years, I've watched my union dues spent on both a social and a political agenda and on issues that I have strongly held moral objections with. Unlike what you hear, unions spend millions of dollars on political activity that every worker has to financially support. Passing a right to work law ensures that workers are not forced to betray their conscience and beliefs simply for supporting their families. For myself, in 2015, I exercised the rights, freedoms, and protections that came with Michigan's right to work law, and I ended my union membership proudly. I currently work side by side in peace and harmony with other workers who have chosen to remain union members and who continue their union support. As more and more states continue to return to union workers their constitutional right to freedom of association, we are actually witnessing in real time that the hateful rhetoric of union officials is proving to be false. Unions in right to work states are alive, they're thriving, and in Michigan, growing as the economic and job growth also continues to skyrocket.
Mr. Bowen, thank you so much. We've hit our 3 minutes, and I appreciate your testimony. Do we have anyone?
You said, so you no longer belong to the union, so you no longer pay dues?
That is correct.
So you get all the benefits of the union now, and you don't have to pay for any of it?
Benefits is a subjective term. It's not objective. It's up to the individual. So I would say I am still forced to accept the limitations of the contract.
So you get health care, pension?
So do non-union members. So that,
No, but I'm
that is not just a
asking a
union,
question.
a union right.
Did you know that you could, according to the NLRA, you could have voted for a decertification of your union?
Do you know anything about decertification? It is extraordinarily difficult, and it's stacked up against the members wishing to decertify their union.
Did you have elections in your union when you were there? Did you participate?
For
your officers?
Plant officers, yes, but not national.
Your plant officers vote for you in a proxy. You vote for your you vote for your officers, and then they go to the international vote, correct?
That is correct, yes.
That's correct. So you did vote, so you had a union, so if you
No,
didn't like what was going on.
vote. I did not vote.
Oh, you didn't vote?
No.
So you didn't vote for anybody? So, I mean, I'm confused about you're upset about the union and this and that, but yet you didn't take part in the process. You didn't take part in any of the elections, you didn't take part in that, but yet you're gonna sit here and.
No. I did not vote for our national union leadership, who sets the policies and who sets the political and social agenda of the union. I had nothing to do with it.
You have local union. You voted in your local union elections, correct?
Sure. So what you're saying is the majority of the members voted this way, so that means I need to be forced to continue to do what the majority says. Is that what you're?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you voted, so you had representation, and then they voted for the leaders in wherever your international union, kind of like what the 34,000 people that vote for us do, and then we take their will here to the state. So
should we have automatic 2-year recertification like we do for House members, or is that you're equating the two?
You have an election. Do you have an election?
Gentlemen, I think we've,
every 3 years?
Gentlemen, representative. I think we've established the voting in the union. Thank you. Is there another member that would like to ask a question? Thank you so much for your testimony. Someone against, please?
Again, with the Missouri Kansas City Committee to Protect Pensions, and I'd like to make one clarification of what Cindy was trying to tell you. The money in the Central States Pension Fund was taken away from the Central States Pension Fund by the U.S. government and put in the hands of Wall Street, who then immediately in 08, 07, and 08 lost $16 billion. That's $16 billion of these hard union workers, employees, money they worked 30 and 40 years for is gone. So we are now trying with everything we can to get that resolved. That's why we wear these t-shirts and work as hard as we do. That being said, I'd like to say the union difference, union pay is higher, wages are higher for women and minorities, workers have better benefits, more productivity, have greater job stability. Workers of all ages belong to unions. Union members work together for mutual protection and benefits. Workers have basic rights. Freedom to join a union is one of the most important rights. What does each union member mean? Being a union member can include your life. Being union means protecting your family, means enjoying the union advantage, working under a collective bargaining agreement that brings bigger paychecks, better health and retirement benefits, more secure jobs, and a better future for your family. Being union means having a voice on the job and in the union, increased workplace productivity, safe working conditions, and a living wage, standards that benefit your community. A collective bargaining agreement is the right to organize and is important to working families. Collective bargaining agreement is an instrument for establishing terms and conditions of employment, which traditionally consists of scope of work, work schedule, wages, benefits, vacation and holiday time, seniority, and grievance procedures. People have a choice to apply for a union job, or they can apply for a non-union job. No one forces anyone to apply for any union job. That is their choice if they apply for a union job. The right to organize is important to working families because the worker is a person who is contributing to the health and prosperity of his business. It is beneficial for both the employer and employee as it leads to high retention of employees, a more productive workforce, and offers an agreement that is mutually agreed upon. Right to work for less is wrong for Missouri. The country's greatest asset is its workforce. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have another Representative Moore?
To inquire,
Proceed.
would it be fair to say that you want more union jobs in Missouri?
Of course we do.
Me too, thank you.
Representative Claxton? Proceed.
First of all, I want to commend you for doing what you're doing. I got a lot of members in my district. I got into a big discussion with them. They were all union. Naturally, they came after me first before we talked. This issue came up. And every one of them that won basically turned on the union. These are union members because of this issue. So what I'm asking of you is to drop some information off in my office so I can tell them that there is somebody fighting for them.
There is also a lot of things going on. We have a lot of movement in Washington. There are remedies to try to solve this. Can you imagine 400,000 employees with no pension? They were going to cut our pensions up to 70%, and they told us in October we're going to do it July 1.
Yeah, I've heard from
30 years. And all of a sudden, July 1, instead of getting $3,000 a month, you're going to get some of our people. We're not even going to break even by the time they took out their spousal this and their ex-wife that. One guy was going to owe them.
There's another union in my, well, there's several of them in my district, but these people actually retired thinking they were going to make $2,500 to $3,000. They also said by the time they take out their deductions, they're getting $700 or $800. So they're working another job, and that's what they said they didn't tell me.
Retired people?
They are retired now, yes. No, just like I don't like their insurance, health insurance and stuff. So my point is, I'm not anti-union. I am a freedom guy. So, but there is a great number of union people in my district. They want to get this cleaned up.
We do too.
And they think through right to work, they will get better representation. So this is always not a negative, but there are some that don't. So, but anyway, if you can give me that information, I'm room 408. I would love to get that to those people so they feel better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Do we have another member that'd like to inquire? Thank you, ma'am, so much for your time. What?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Committee. My name is Jeremy Cady. I'm the State Director for Americans for Prosperity. It's an honor to be here today as we look at making Missouri the nation's 28th right-to-work state. Simply put, the issue couldn't be any clearer. Right to work guarantees a basic freedom, the freedom to work without mandatory union membership. In addition, the data has made the economic impact obvious. Right-to-work states experience lower unemployment, great job growth, population growth, income growth. A right-to-work law would prevent workers from being coerced into joining or paying dues or association fees to a union in order to keep a job. I'm submitting written testimony much longer, so I'll keep it brief. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do we have questions for this witness? Thank you so much. Again?
Madam Chair, Committee, sister and brother union members. My name is Joel Womack. I'm from Liberty, Missouri.
a 43-year member of IBEW 124 electricians, VFW member, and I had a question or a comment to make to Mr. Pietzman. Is that correct, sir? Close, okay. I'm a Freedom member also. United States Marines, best training in the world. IBEW, the best training for an electrician for all our crafts. We have the best in the United States right here in Missouri. And an example, I have 2 children that I raised, sent to college, graduates, and they chose to be public employee service members. One's for Kansas City Police Department, the other's from North Kansas City Firefighter. They didn't choose to have an exorbitant job. They wanted to serve our community, and this is the time that we all know we need to support those people 100%. As far as my union wages go, I couldn't help him out without my health benefits, health care for my kids, which I've had to use, and the benefits as far as being a union laborer. The money just wasn't there if I didn't have my union benefits and wages. So also, I'd like to make a comment to the gentleman that made a comment in regards to respect. It's been a very respectful body, and the Marine Corps taught me dignity with respect. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much for your service. And if you don't mind to stay, we have a couple questions for you. Okay, come on back. Come on back. Come on back. Yes, sir. If you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Berry,
Good fire.
proceed.
Thank you for your service, and also thank you for the dignity and respect you brought to your testimony.
Sure.
You know, when we're trying to figure out this, or for me, I'll speak only for myself, trying to figure out right to work and all the nuances and all the benefits or negatives, all the different things. You know, you brought up that you raised your kids, they went to school, and then they chose to serve, and they're serving as a firefighter,
right,
and then they're serving as a policeman, public service. Okay, and the fire, I would imagine, since you're from Kansas City, is your son in the firefighters from Kansas City?
Yes.
So he's a member of Local 42. But in Missouri, public employees are already right to work. Okay, they already could choose or not choose to be a member. And so when you look at this dichotomy, and I would argue that Local 42 is a vibrant and a union that is providing benefits to its members. Won't that happen, or can that not happen for the private unions if we pass right to work?
No, the benefits wouldn't be there, sir.
Is Local 42's benefits not there?
They are there.
Okay, but they are underneath right to work currently. Okay, public service employees,
That's
unions
fine. And that's where the freedom comes in. You know, you can do, you know, as you wish to do, the freedom. But the benefits are there. I'm telling you from the fact. I've been in the field, out of town and such. And so,
You understand?
Yeah.
Do you understand my question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Please be sure to fill out a witness form. Gentlemen? He did, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I wanted to be sure we had a witness form on you. 4.
Honorable members of the committee, my name is Patrick Ishmael. I'm the Director of Government Accountability at the Show Me Institute. I know that we've gone some time, so I don't want to relitigate a lot of the debates about the economics of it. We certainly think the economics work out for this. I think that there should be a little more attention paid also to the speech benefits that Right to Work really captures. I think that's very important, the association benefit, but I will leave it at that. We support Right to Work, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Do we have questions for this witness? None. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Again,
Yes,
welcome.
thank you. Madam Chair, committee, my name's Rod Sturgeon. I'm a third generation carpenter. Grandfather was one. My dad kind of followed in his footsteps. My dad helped construct Winston Churchill Memorial, and I've seen pride in it. And became, I don't know, 19 or 20 years old. My dad seen that I was a good worker, and he asked me if I wanted to join carpenters. I ended up joining. And I don't think that anybody sitting on this committee can tell me where you can go get a carpenter job anywhere in this state and retire at 53 years of age with full benefits, like I have. And my body broke down. I've had 2 surgeries since I've retired. People that's been in my shoes can't continue to work till they're 65 and 70 years old. My union has provided a great opportunity for me. Am I a representative of my union? Yes, I am, as a member. I'm not a president, I'm not an officer, I'm here as a member, and we're all in it together. Can I ask you guys some questions? Is there, I'm in the trade 31 years, I worked quite a bit around the state, and I got to know a lot of the contractors. I don't see any of the contractors in this room that are for right to work. And as representatives, don't you guys represent your constituents? I mean, would you say that this room is representative of the state of Missouri? Would you say that it's not a piece of the state?
Representative Berry?
And see, that's the beautiful thing about our state. It's very, very diverse, okay?
Right.
And there are places in this state where there's very low union membership. And there are places in the state that have very high union membership. So for me, and I'm speaking only for me, okay, my district is a very mix of people, okay? And so as a representative, I'm supposed to represent that group of people, that 36,000 people. And Representative Land from the Joplin area, Representative Davis from the Joplin area, very, very low union membership compared to Kansas City, St. Louis. They represent their 36,000 people. So that's as our job, I represent my 36,000 people as they do theirs. And then my answer can be absolutely different than their answer.
Well, I understand that. I've got a couple other questions too. The guy from the Chamber of Commerce that came up and spoke, is he still in here?
I'm so sorry, we don't really have time.
Oh, well, I was just wanting to ask him.
But you can wrap. You're welcome to mention it in your statement as you wrap up.
Well, I'm looking at starting a business here shortly, and I was wondering if he'd let me join for free. Will he represent me? I'm just asking. Is that not a fair question?
Thank you so much, sir, for your testimony. Be sure to fill out a witness form.
It is. Thank you.
Oh, Representative Miller to inquire.
Yeah, real quick. You won't charge you for the advertising that they make.
Yeah. Well, hey, something else that I want to bring up too.
I'm so sorry. Gentlemen, thank you. You've been very entertaining. We do appreciate your time as well, coming down here to testify. Laura? Yes.
Randall Hardy, President, Associated Industries of Missouri. Proud to be here in support of all 5 of these bills. And in response to the last question, that is something I'm sure if the chamber guy was here, he'd say the same thing that I would tell you. We do work on behalf of all the businesses in the state, whether they pay us dues or not. So it is very similar. I'm glad you brought it up. One thing I would mention is in several of the bills, there's a misdemeanor. And I would ask you to think through practically how you would apply that. I don't know how it really would be applied if you had a business, a corporation, for example. How would you apply a misdemeanor against a corporation? That doesn't seem to make sense. You may take a look at that and possibly remove it. The injunctive relief is also the Michigan law, but the misdemeanor part is not.
Thank you. Representative Hopper,
To inquire.
proceed.
Thank you. Bringing up the misdemeanor, the law legal enforcement component, do you have any suggestions?
Yes, I would just take the misdemeanor part out of it because you have the injunctive relief already.
Or at least you a permanent injunction?
Right. I don't think you have injunctive relief, but how would you apply it to a company?
I'm all ears. I mean, I see where you're coming from. What do you do to a corporation to hold them accountable?
Michigan doesn't have that provision, that's all I'm saying.
Sure, the Attorney General could certainly go after the corporation and maybe you open it up and allow piercing of a corporate veil, perhaps. I don't know. I mean,
Then you'd have to find who's responsible.
sure. I mean, but you have to have some component of enforcement. And there's a civil remedy, which is good if there's harm shown. I mean, so I contend that having a jury trial, if you would elect on a criminal component, is better than an administrative component. I know we've talked about administrative enforcement through some agencies in the state of Missouri, but I'm all ears. I'm in 115D.
Well, then, as I said, we're very supportive of the bill. Just last you to think through the practicality of having a misdemeanor on a company that couldn't be prosecuted. I mean, they couldn't go to jail for a misdemeanor. Who would you put in jail? The whole company.
I'm all ears for it. Yes, sir.
That's my comment.
Other questions from the committee? Thanks, sir.
Thanks.
Oops, against?
Good afternoon, Chairman. My name is Scott Ramshaw. I'm the registered lobbyist for the plumbers and pipefitters out of St. Louis. You know, the union security clause that's negotiated with our partners, Mechanical Contractors Association and plumbing industry contractors, has made it successful for over 100 years. I don't know much about other unions on how people apply for their unions, but we have a waiting line to get into our union. As far as Greg Holbach talking about taking individuals from the inner city and taking them out state or into another state and paying them $15 an hour, our goal in the state of Missouri is to find those applicants that we can create a career for in St. Louis or in the 67 counties that we cover. Unions today have changed dramatically. The building trade works constantly with the AGC. The AGC works with the RCGA. The building trade is part of the RCGA in St. Louis. We work with our organization works with the Hawthorne Foundation. We help business development in this state. It's kind of ironic that Right to Work gets moved into Economic Development Committee. And I've been up here since 2005, and we spent a lot of time on this issue. I don't feel we spend enough time on economic development in this state. And until we're all in the room, the House, the Senate, the governor, the departments working together to promote this state, I don't believe we're going to move forward. We're not the show me state right now. I'm not saying it's a Democratic problem. I'm not saying it's a Republican problem. It's our problem as a whole as Missourians. Behind you on the wall is the seal of Missouri. We have to promote this state so that we're seen as a state that wants to bring business here. We need to talk about incentives. We need to talk about infrastructure. We need to talk about job creation, workforce development. Representative Lamb, Right to Work, was in his committee for several years. It's good to see you back from over the summer. We have a lot of things that we have to work on. We're going to be talking to the Senate, just as you know, tomorrow on the same issue. But this issue is not going to solve the economic development of this state. It's not going to be the solution, the end-all solution. And until we get that through our head and work together and figure out how to use each other's resources. Jeff Abusi, the former building trades president, and now John Stifler have been working furiously to work with companies to bring economic development to the state through our pension plan investment funds.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much. We've hit our time. Representative Green, proceed.
First of all, good afternoon, almost evening, good afternoon. You touched on many different things, and in the background, I've been trying to work with the unions, as you know, work close with you and others on the minority participation piece. Can you explain more of that? Not to go in depth, but there's a huge piece. I don't know the answer if it's right to work, not right to work, but I do know that more minorities need to participate in the unions, and I'll let you address that.
Right. The building trades had a program called the Bud program. Jeff Boosie and John Silver could talk on it more than I. But our goal, like I said, our goal inside the trades is to find individuals. Normally when we look for individuals that have put skin in the game, that have gone to some type of trade school in the state or technical school. When they go to a technical school and they come out, that doesn't mean that they can still work on our service site for heating and cooling. When we walk into MasterCard, our service guy walks into MasterCard Center out in Chesterfield, that place has to be running. That place goes down for any unknown reason. Backup facility in Kansas City is going to be what backs that up. But I mean, we're talking multi-millions of dollars of technology today. It's a different world. We're in a global market. In Springfield and in Joplin, Missouri, the Owens Corning project that went there. That project was successful because there was an existing building that they could go into, do a project and be successful in turning that around and not have to build the building. They added on to the building. Now that project, all of those workers on that project weren't from Missouri. Some were from Arkansas. In my head, I try to figure out if we're economic development, we talk economic development, and we get incentives from the states, why aren't we back in the contract, Missouri contractors who are negotiating contracts for education and training so that we have future generations that can keep the state going forward? I asked someone from Joplin what those jobs pay. Those jobs will have anywhere from $15 to $18 high pay. There's no room for advancement from that job. We're thankful for that job in the state, and hopefully it'll spur other economic development. But we need to, and I said, well, those jobs there grow that economy. It'll help the economy, but it's not going to grow the economy. I don't think anybody's goal here in this room is to have our children work for $15 an hour. They might start out, or they might start at different wages. I started at Schnucks, at Grand and Iron. When I got in the trade, I was made a stock boy right before I got in. I was making $15 then and $79. Our goal is for economic development for all and inclusive in the building trades for minority participation.
Proceed.
Yes, Mr. Ramshaw. Hi, Scott. I have a question for you. Could you expand on what happened recently at Boeing? What happened up in North County at Boeing?
Very lightly. I mean, we were successful. The building trades was successful along with many others, both Republicans and Democrats. U.S. senators, state senators, former Senator Bond. That was a successful project for the community. It'll be successful for the region. It'll grow. Some of our members drive anywhere from an hour to 2 to go to construction sites, wherever they have to go. We cover 67 counties from the state of Missouri. I'm sure voters in your area drive sometimes 2 hours to go to the Boeing jobs, or to go to Anheuser-Busch, or to go to somewhere else. There's a collective bargaining agreement there, a union security clause, with a pension plan, a retirement system, and health care. Let's raise the whole state. Let's get off the issues that are dividing us. I ask you to please take time, review, get with the Missouri Economic Development Group. Mike Dowling did a great job. People can think their own opinions of everybody in the state. I look at the economic development from the 30,000 foot level because I watch the whole state. I look at the 5,000 foot level, 2,000 foot level in the 67 counties I cover. I also have access to the whole United States on the information I have. And I want to work with you.
Thank you so
And so
much.
does labor to make that state economic, successful.
We appreciate
The
it.
building trades have been part of that along with the FLCIO.
Thank you so much. 4?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Mark Rhodes. I'm here. We're their first state chapter, and I'm not going to go over my testimony. You all should have it. It's been distributed to you. It has some of the data points. You have some of the data that you've already heard. We simply, believe the passage of this legislation will bring Missouri into the majority of states that have passed such bills, and it'll allow us to compete. It will create new jobs. It will assist both existing employers and hopefully entice new employers. With that, Madam Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Do we have questions of this witness? Thank you. Again?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, committee members, I'm Brian Kelly. I'm the Missouri State Legislative Board Chairman, Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, the oldest union in North America.
How are you?
Our brotherhood was founded in 1863, nearly 154 years ago in the midst of the Civil War. Please think about that for a moment. We've been through many battles in the century and a half since we first organized. Our members have served in every war since our inception. From railroad workers, and many among our ranks are veteran military men and women. We will never stop fighting. Our union structure emulates that of our government. We have presidents, vice presidents, etc. We as union officers participate in the nomination, as union members, participate in the nomination process and the election of our dedicated officers. As officers, we are elected by our peers to serve them just as you are elected by your peers to serve them. Most of us work part-time just as you do. I am the highest ranking DLAT member in the state, but I'm a servant, not a boss. Those who refer to us as union bosses need to understand that this is a derogatory term, and it's insulting to not only us as the officers, but our members who elect us. If you don't remember anything else I said today, I hope you remember that. By the way, I had to do a lot of editing, so bear with me. In my 41 years of working in a variety of crafts at the railroad, I have had the privilege of being in 3 different unions. I've also been honored to serve over 20 years as a union officer. This is my 11th year as a chairman, and my coming to the Capitol here in Jeff. In spite of being involved with thousands of union brothers and sisters over those 4 decades, I have never met or heard of a single one that objected to paying for union dues. Not a single one. If you guys want to call me a liar, you can, but that's the last thing I am. Just as I am obligated to do my best to represent my members' desires and best interests, you must also, with those you took an oath to represent. If you honestly are certain how they want you to vote, then please vote that way. But if you are not, then please abstain until you know for sure. And I know at least one of you has voted present several times. And in some ways, I can't admire a person enough for that. Because I know some of you haven't had hardly any time at all to find out what your constituents really think about this issue. Your time here will go quickly and be a mere pit stop in many of your lives. I have seen hundreds of you come, serve, and leave. I encourage you to remember that you were elected to represent your districts, not a party, not a caucus, and not an agenda.
Thank you so much, sir. We've hit our 3 minutes.
I have one last sentence, can I read?
Absolutely.
I've been survived for 154 years, not by mistreating or misrepresenting our members,
but because we've always treated them like our brothers and sisters.
Do we have questions for this witness?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Clark?
Proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for being here. Really appreciate it. I was just wondering, just keeping in mind, do you have data on your membership in other states, if it's grown or what the numbers look like? And in the state of Missouri, do you have data on your membership? How many members you have, if it's grown or decreased over the years? Or?
Well, I have some wonderful news for you. On the very last page of all these bills, we're exempt of the Federal Railway Labor Act as a Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. So I really don't have a dog in the hunt per se, but I'm also a proud member of the Teamsters, and I'm a proud brother and sister of numerous union members around the state, and I take that very, very seriously.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Additional questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
See you after witness form. Thank you. 4?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, my name is Mike Hafner. I'm a registered lobbyist with the Missouri Century Foundation. We are a nonprofit organization that works to promote free market, promote and advance free market principles. And we just want to go on the record as in support of this registration legislation.
Excellent. Do we have any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Against? Anyone for?
My name is Andrea Plunkett, and I know somebody asked earlier if any contractors were here, and we own a glass contracting company out of Kansas City. We employ about 90 people. And I just wanted to make a real quick statement about the skilled trades and the training that's available to unions and also to non-unions, because I think it's an unfortunate misconception that you can only enter a trade by going into the union or learn a trade or become proficient on a trade, and that's just not true. We run a Department of Labor certified apprenticeship program through our company. We pay 100% of it. We pay our guys to work our program. They graduate with this exact same journeyman credentials as any union company does. They're transferable anywhere in the United States. And we're not the only company. There's many non-union companies that do this in the state of Missouri. And so if you have questions or if you're wondering what kind of resources exist outside of the union for people to get into the skilled trades, contact us or contact any of the other people, the non-union companies in the state of Missouri that do the exact same thing.
Thank you for coming. Do we have questions? Representative Tyson? Proceed.
When you get this training, is it specific to your trade, or do you take the safety classes? Are you certified for all that?
Yeah, as part of our specific program, we do a lot of above and beyond what we're Glazers. So we do the entire Glazers, Department of Labor Glazers program, but all of our guys get their OSHA 10 hour in the first month or two of our apprenticeship program, then they get their OSHA 30 hour. We have specific Glazer safety training. We do rigging training, crane training. So we do the curriculum, and then we go above and beyond and train people, to help more industry specific as to what they'll deal with in our particular company.
Where do you get that? To be honest, most people I do know that have that do get that through the union. So that's enough for them, in my opinion, to keep them working. So, but I was just curious, where do you obtain that as a non-union company?
Where do we get
the training?
We have to be certified through the Department of Labor, just like the unions would have to. So we submit our curriculum. We have to keep really detailed records. We have to turn it in. We are audited. So the same exact program that they would follow through their apprenticeship programs.
So you're getting the same curriculum?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering, where you obtained your
Yeah. We use the exact same curriculum, and in fact, I don't think that there's a union glazing apprenticeship program in our area anymore. I think we're the only one. And so it's, it's a great option for people. They don't have to join the union. You can get a great paying job. We use the same wage scales, so there are other options. And I don't want people to think of that as an argument against right to work, because it's really not.
I understand. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Do we have a?
So would you suggest that all companies pay for training for their employees?
I mean, for us, it was, it's a business decision, and there's a lack of skilled trade employees. And so when you talk about, do you want jobs? I mean, yeah, we want more union jobs and non-union jobs, but we need more skilled employees. That's the main problem that anybody working in the trade is going to tell you. And so for us, it was the best decision to take people coming out of high school, people coming out of college degrees that didn't work out, and now they want to learn a trade. I recently hired a baker. I have a chiropractor in our apprenticeship program, a doctor. We have people from all over. We have farmers, we have high school graduates. And this was a way for us to get them into the trades and get them into a great career.
But that's what I'm asking you. So would you suggest that companies should pay for the training for
I mean,
workers,
I
or
can't
should it
speak
be?
for all companies, but for us, yeah, it was no brainer. Is it a good idea for every company? I have no idea.
Thank you.
Do we have other questions for this witness? Thank you, ma'am. Please be sure to fill out a witness form and leave that back. Petition? Anyone for? Okay. This will, thank you. Informational purposes. No? I know it's going to be against what everyone wants, but we're going to conclude our hearing on House Bill 42, House Bill 91, House Bill 131, House Bill 265, and House Bill 314. Thank you all so much for your time.